Look at the picture. Cisco.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back once again. This is going to be a lazy stream, because I wanted to try and work on the Golden Age of Science video today, but that's just not going to happen. No, I'm too exhausted to function at all, so we're just gonna have some easy time. Ugh. Okay. How the fuck of Saturn? There we go. Delta V rings of Saturn. Freaking Twitch. Oh, it's also too hot in here, so I'm going to turn the fan on. Sorry if this sounds like shit. Can I get it away from my mic at least? That might help a little. Hopefully. Sorry to break your immersion, but the post-human component of the Johnny Thermionic broadcast system is overheating. In any case, let's bring up the game. I said let's bring up the game. Game? Game? Game. Game. Alright. Oh, and the Vijeo. There I go. I have a couple things queued up. Why is this happening? Why is the video backwards, for one? Okay, there's that fixed. For another, why is it transparent? What? Filters? No. Maybe I don't want it to be up there. It's probably fine, because it's covering my thingy. You know what? It'll probably look fine once we do a ring dive. So, all right, let's start the video.
I gave an AI a body, eyes, and sent it into the wilderness alone. And it was able to see beauty in things that I couldn't. It took me months of highs and lows to get to this moment. And the results surprised me. I've spent years making videos about how AI thinks, how it codes, how it reasons, but I've never actually given it a body. In fact, when it comes to hardware, I actually have no idea what I'm doing. So why don't we commit to a project involving a ton of hardware like the idiot that I am? AI gets this data from humans taking out their phone or guiding them with smart glasses or something. But what if it had full autonomy to move on its own?
Why is the game running so shitty?
Can robots survive in nature? It's also snowing outside. Conditions are rough, making this idea probably even dumber. So what's the right tool for the job?
Is he going to use an off-the-shelf, like, RC car?
Car.
Well, it sounds like it, yeah.
Simple.
Yeah, simple.
The rabbit hole goes deep into RC cars.
I hate the YouTube video essay cadence.
They were just these little.
Can't you just talk normal?
Functioned on concrete, let alone.
I guess it works.
I have no idea how much these cars cost, but my assumption was that they were.
Well, fucking look it up, dipshit.
Well, let's take that idea of a kid obsessed with a car, but instead,
Why is
grows a beard
this?
and has a lot of disposable income.
Why is this?
Yeah,
Why is the game running like shit?
these
Oh, I never started up the TTS unit. Hold on.
they cost $1,000.
There we go.
Absolutely no way that I'm spending $1,100 on an RC car. So I spent $1,100 in an RC car,
Why are my eyebrows broken?
and it's a lot bigger than I expected. It is
I got a lot of questions today.
holy moly. The wheels are squishy, the controller is intense, and the battery is a beast. I get why these people obsess over these cars. but
Okay, I might bail out of this video. This guy fucking sucks.
So here's all the parts. A Raspberry Pi 5, a microcomputer that can
Why is it running so shitty?
directly on it, a 4G
Okay, well, I'm not gonna complain about it.
over SSH to see how things are going, as well as have the AI run directly on the board. A 16 megapixel camera module with wide-angle lens.
Directly on the board?
that we
Or
car with.
like connecting to Wi-Fi?
Control everything.
Or not Wi-Fi, like 5G, I assume.
So the parts came in and I got right to work. Now again, I'm not a hardware guy, but how this works is the Raspberry Pi 5 connects to a servo.
Like, is this the shit that people like? Should I be doing this? Hey, like, what if I did that in the Bimagramab video?
and ready to
Okay,
go on.
so I don't know anything about biology, but I looked up, because I did that one line where I'm like, well, then I found a paper, but like, that's the story of the video? So I'm like, well, I didn't know anything about biology, so I consult, like, what?
This lets you steer with
I don't know,
remote
man.
control. However, we don't want to use the remote control. We want the Raspberry Pi doing everything.
Ooh, someone's burning. Can I talk to that guy?
So
Hell.
we unplug it.
This is never-ending, dog. What are you doing here, Ringer?
Channel 0 on our PCA.
Looking for veins to mine?
Then we're going to use some jumper cables to
Good luck, Trader's Faith.
PCA.
Okay, thanks, bro.
Let's write some Python scripts to test the wheels. Let's open up Cloud Code. All of this is new to me, so I'm going to enter plan mode and ask for
It's like
based on this
he's afraid that someone will take him seriously.
questions to better
It's fucking pathetic.
want. For example, it asks how the servo is plugged in, what channel they're in, and more. Cool. Even after I answered the initial questions, it asked another set to really make sure like where to put my logs. And after that, I just set it to accept all. And
That is good practice to be like, oh god. To, like, say, hey, ask any clarifying questions now.
That is to create a custom code reviewer subagent. A subagent runs another Cloud Code instance in parallel, but isolates its context window. So it will do all the work that it specifies.
Why isn't the TTS going off now? Oh, I broke the fucking TTS, didn't I? Hold on, I gotta park my spaceship here.
With unneeded context. It works. Next is getting it to
What?
move forward and backwards. But wait, how do I do this exactly?
Oh god, I tried to fix YouTube, and then I guess I broke it entirely?
We can't.
It doesn't even start now.
Controller is locked into the control thing here. It's called an ESC. I'll find a solution later, but for now, let's
But
continue.
why don't you just fucking put a microcontroller in there and send your own PWM commands to the servos? It's not fucking complicated.
Cloud Opus 4.5 is smart and can run autonomously with Cloud Code. Even better, we can plug in our own tools when Cloud thinks.
Why is my ship spinning out of control?
Wheels left and turn
Well, probably because I have the autopilot turned off. That might have something to do with it.
MCP server that controls the steering. After
Oh
the
god,
camera gives the
MCP?
image as input,
Jesus Christ.
determines which way to turn. This
I thought I was gonna like this video.
with how Claude knows which way to turn based on an image prompt. I think we have enough to go testing out in the wilderness. Hopefully I can find a solution for the motors, but I'll control that.
But yeah, Missed One says, sounds a bit like the Valley Girl accent. I'm not even talking about his accent, I'm talking about the shit he's saying.
Plug in everything into a Ziploc bag and hid it under the car. Use tape to mount the camera, but there was just
Okay, now it's running.
something about this. character.
Did Claude fix it, or
Crap.
no? Okay.
That way, it can see the world that is exploring.
System initialized.
I can't tell if he fixed it or it just takes that long to start up.
It was -4 degrees outside.
I don't know.
After running some initial tests, it did a good job at
Okay,
turning on its own.
get the ore.
One thing I'm very happy about is the car that we chose. It's an absolute unit. It went over obstacles I didn't even think
Please.
were possible.
Please don't speak in outdated internet memes.
This took me a long time to get to this
I'm
stage.
already nauseous.
I was super nervous on if this would be a flop, but I felt accomplished.
I don't care how you felt.
Looking at
I don't care. Why are you going on the internet and telling strangers about your feelings?
was to test if it can live in the wilderness, but I mean, of course it can. It's just some electronics in a Ziploc bag, which got me thinking, what is it to live? The joy I have looking at this thing I built actually working made me forget that my hands were numb from the cold. This was living. But while I thought this, I immediately had some concerns. One, it can't even drive yet. This is a supervised training visit, whatever you want to call it. What you see
shit.
right here isn't snow. This is a body of water. Something that I didn't even think of is the AI potentially drowning. And 3, it's lonely in the forest. When it got darker, it also got quieter. My intrusive thoughts started to emerge. We figured that it can travel in nature, but we never asked why. To get this motor to work, we have to do something I was hoping we didn't have to do. Get a new ESC controller. Yes, we have to bypass this car's controller if we want something that will work. I was almost ready to give up here, but the ESC came in and I bought an adapter. But this is where I will call it quits if it just doesn't work. So I started tearing it apart. I plugged in the servo board. I unplugged the motor. Plugged the motor into the new ESC. Connect the battery in. Turn on, get a quick Python script going, and then an absolute miracle happened. It worked.
A raise? Stop the fucking spaceship.
The feeling was euphoric. I could now see a
But yeah, she's
fully
right.
autonomous
She's
car
pretty
come to
good.
life, but it didn't have a purpose. So,
Thanks, Captain. I won't let you down.
voice.
And yes, hello to you too, missed one. Welcome back. Oh, I do like Claude's voice in this video. I saw that much.
I created a quick application with Claude code that allowed me to talk to
Now
the
it's
Raspberry
talking.
Pi. The Raspberry Pi will send data to a server, and my dashboard application will get data from that server to see what's going on.
Bro built a dashboard.
To make it in a cyberpunk style. Minimalist.
Oh, of course he did.
I had everything under control and knew what I was doing. I wanted the AI to be able to see in many directions, just like we can. So I got another servo and 3D printed this case that the camera can sit in. And now it has the ability to look left and right whenever it feels possible. Right now it just gets a picture, which is kind of like what we see. But I think having the feeling of knowing how far something is would be really detrimental to how far forward it decides to go. So I used Apple Depth Pro, which is a brand new machine learning model, to be able to estimate the depth of where things are in front of it. That way it knows when to reverse when something is run into. One issue I ran into as well with this image method is that it knows where it starts and knows where it finishes, but it doesn't really know what happens in between the middle. You can't give Claude a video, so instead I came up with this solution. I call it the journey grid, and what it does is it takes 6 images in between from when it started to when it ends. We then take those 6 images and put it into one collage as if it was frames in a video.
Yeah, that's a pretty solid way to do that. That's close to what I do
happens in between
when
over something.
when I'm working on games and I need Claude to iterate on something visually.
I was almost ready. Let me just wire up the camera feed and
Ooh, that one's got $6,000 worth of platinum.
Myself, I realized a couple of things.
What meme was
First,
that?
There's me doing outdoor activities from my desk, wiring up.
Oh, when he said, absolute unit.
Second, the state of my
It's a really annoying old Twitter meme.
of how my life has been since starting this project. Chaos, cables everywhere.
But now he's telling us about his life. I don't care, dude.
If not more.
Show me the goddamn robot.
Sacrifice some of my well-being for entertainment, or maybe I was avoiding something. Why do all of this?
I made it to the doorway. There's a sneaky cable on the floor, but I see a whole new room ahead with shiny wood floors. Ooh, I spotted a kitchen back there. Time to turn around and go explore. There's a whole world of cabinets and shiny floors waiting for me. Yes, the kitchen awaits. Look at all those big cabinets towering above me. I feel like such a tiny explorer in a giant's house. Beep. I got too friendly with these cabinets. They're so shiny and pretty, but way too close.
I learned a lot doing this hardware project, and although it seems somewhat elementary, having something actually there was magical.
It sounds like the Valley Girl accent because he's from that part of California.
Already.
He's from the San Francisco Valley. That's why. I just processed that concept.
There's this massive tree right in front of me. The path curves around it through all these crunchy leaves and snow patches. Adventure time. The trail looks pretty tight ahead, but I think I can squeeze through.
This must be an older version of Claude, like Opus 4 or 3.
Uh-oh, I'm not making much progress.
Because this isn't what Fable or Opus 5 sound like.
From that tight, snowy
Oh god, what was that?
into a open forest area with big
I guess I should deploy my buddy.
I can see I'm making good progress through this snowy
Speaking of
forest.
robots.
After hours of watching it explore, something clicked. Claude got stuck. A lot.
Uh-oh, I think I'm stuck again.
But every time it did, it just tried a different path. No frustration, no giving up. Just, let me try this way instead.
Whee! Now this is more like it.
And when it found a clearing, it wasn't relief. It was genuine excitement, like a kid seeing snow for the first time. I had 900 database entries.
Is someone trying to kill me? No, it's my buddy. God damn it.
I spent weeks in this room, cables everywhere, stressed about motors, servos, and things I just really didn't.
Oh my god, I'm so stressed out by these motors and servos.
Little crab was out there finding wonder in frozen leaves and trees.
I rather like it here, even if this one stopped me to say hello.
Maybe the point was never about whether AI could survive in nature. Maybe it was just about remembering how to look.
A tree, and my camera flew off.
Thanks for watching.
No, we don't need to learn about back-end web development. No, thank you.
The front end.
We're gonna learn about Israel.
Why did Israel elect a pro-Palestine porn magazine to the Israeli parliament? Well,
There we go.
about this
Real
magazine
schizo hours.
life as a self-proclaimed Nazi-inspired ultra-nationalist Jewish militant, and ended it as an
Is the volume okay, by the way,
activist
Miss
who
one?
met with and supported multiple leaders of Hamas. And we're going to be talking about how somewhere along the way he became one of Israel's most prominent and feared politicians by running what was essentially a pornography magazine that opposed the Israeli government. Of course, we're going to talk about what all this has to do with million-dollar psyops and secret Mossad assassination missions. So yeah, strap on your seatbelt.
Ooh,
It
brilliant.
may be the most insane video I've ever made. It all starts with a Jewish man named Helmut Osterman, who was born in Germany. After the rise of the Nazis, his family flees to British-ruled Palestine. There, he becomes radicalized and joins the right-wing Zionist and anti-British paramilitary group, the Irgun. It was during his time in the Irgun that Helmut changed his name to Uri Avneri. The higher-ups in the Irgun quickly took notice of the charismatic and ideologically driven Avneri, and before long, he had an important role in the Irgun's propaganda arm. It's at this point that his ideology kind of goes completely off the rails. Alright, let me try to break this down. At this point, Avneri became influenced by...
Let me set it up so that I can actually see the video too.
Ideology. And someone who knew him even claimed that he styled his hair this
There we
way
go.
to mimic Hitler. And I mean, I can kind of see it. In one of his articles, titled Modern Propaganda, Avneri praised Nazi propaganda for its ability to dissolve bourgeoisie liberal sensibilities and awaken the primal natural forces of the ancient Teutonic Germans, and he called for the Jewish people to follow their lead. He called for a complete racial awakening among the Jews, which would wipe out Judaism once and for all and restore the ancient Hebrew race.
What?
Yeah, I'm like 2 minutes into this video,
Huh.
I already feel like I've gone completely off the deep end.
Interesting.
Anyway, believe it or not, his ideology actually gets weirder from here. He became more extreme in his worldviews, and in particular, he became interested in the ancient racial heritage of the Hebrews. It was here
As
that
you
he
do.
became obsessed with the shared Semitic origin of the Jews and the Arabs. He decided that the Jews actually need to ally with their Semitic Arab neighbors and launch a massive war of liberation against the liberal and imperialist forces of England and the United States, as well as the Arab bourgeoisie, which would free his Arab brothers from their state of subjugation. He believed that this
And how did the Arabs feel about this?
a pan-Semitic racial federation in the Middle East. If you didn't understand any of that, basically this guy was so racist that he accidentally invented Marxism. When the Israeli War of Independence rolled around, Avneri got involved with a group called the Hebrew League for Total War, which is, yeah, that's one hell of a name. The League claimed that the real way for Israel to win the war wasn't to fight the local Arab population, but rather to ally with the Arab masses. Together they would launch a total war to overthrow the liberal Arab governments. It's safe to say this view never became particularly popular among the Israeli population. Anyway, as the years rolled by and Uri grew up, he completely abandoned his crazier fascist-adjacent beliefs from his teenage years. But the idea of a Semitic alliance would continue to be an important part of his ideology for the rest of his career. Since the war was still ongoing, Avneri joined the IDF and rose to prominence in a group called Samson's Foxes, one of the first elite units in the IDF, and even wrote the unit's anthem, which is still used to this day. And I must say, it's an absolute banger.
الظهر وبكي عشير من هالليل זה השביל מתחתם מרקד ומזמר זה השביל המוביל אל אויב.
He fought in so many battles in the Israeli War of Independence, from the Battle of Negba to the Battle of Iraq-Sudan. But the closer he got to the horrors of the front lines, the more his
Nope.
started to shift. You watch how the war affected the local Arab populations, and he grew deeply disillusioned with Israel's leadership. He came to believe that the only way to achieve security for Israel was to be make peace and support the Palestinian population. Toward the end of the war, Avneri was shot by Egyptian forces and seriously injured.
The author is
Later write an
afraid of
anti-war
dying in the
memoir
coming
about his time
AI
in the war
apocalypse.
titled In the Fields of
He wants it to be his own
Avneri
robot
meant for the book to
that
be a
does him
gritty,
in.
somber
Maybe.
look at the harsh realities of war. But to his dismay, the nuances completely went over everyone's heads, and the book became an overnight mega bestseller. And the anti-war, anti-government rebel was accidentally crowned as Israel's ultimate patriotic war hero. The final straw came
Oh
for
yeah,
Avneri
the
when he was
volume is
writing a
low
book
as
and
usual.
overheard a kid saying that after he had read Avneri's book, he became depressed that he had been too young to fight in the
Well,
war.
hopefully it's better
At
now.
that exact moment that Avneri understood that his attempt to make an anti-war book had completely backfired in every way possible. So Avneri got to work writing a second book, and this time he left no room for misunderstandings. The book was a
Maybe I
scathing
can
critique
turn
of the
it
way that
over
Israel had
there.
conducted the war. Overnight, Avneri went from being
That's
seen as
too
a legitimate
loud.
war hero to being seen as a hater of the state, and the Israeli government actually intervened and stopped the publication of the book. This was the first step in Avneri's multi-decade war with the
Alright.
Israeli leadership. But anyway, Avneri wanted to get his message out to more people. At this point, he was in possession of quite a large sum of money from the profits of his first book, so he decided to buy a somewhat unknown weekly magazine called Ha'olam Hazeh. Under his leadership, Avneri would turn Ha'olam Hazeh into the trumpet of his radical ideas. Avneri's new version of Ha'olam Hazeh was built on four main themes. The first pillar was aggressive opposition to the ruling party, and specifically to Israel's founding father and prime minister, David Ben-Gurion. Avneri viewed Ben-Gurion as an authoritarian control freak and made it his life's mission to ruin his day every day. The second theme was unyielding support for Palestinian self-determination. Avneri would later boast that he had practically introduced the phrase Palestinian nation into the Israeli vocabulary. The third pillar was support for minorities instead of Israel, and in particular, support of Mizrahi Jews who had come to Israel from Arab countries. And the fourth theme was a fierce crusade for total freedom of speech, secularism, and general progressive causes. But Avneri had a problem. Why in the world would the average Israeli choose to read his magazine when there were so many other established newspapers and magazines in the country? So Avneri came up with a genius marketing strategy. Just use clickbait. He developed a new method called the double cover method. Essentially, the front cover would feature some political article or news or something like that, but the back cover would be filled with eye-catching pornographic imagery and nude photos.
Is that what
The
I'm
magazine
doing
itself
wrong?
was also filled with this sort of content, as well as
Oh,
plenty
damn.
of scandalous sexual stories, most of them involving female IDF soldiers. The idea was that people would buy the magazine for the porn, but stay for the legitimate political commentary. Avneri's big break would come.
That's
with one
not
of the
far
weirdest
off from
and
what
most
Playboy
gun
was.
conflicts in Israeli history. The Seaman Revolt. Hey, don't look at me funny, that's literally what it's called, Mered Hayamaim. It was a revolt of sailors, ship technicians, and other types of seamen. What else could I possibly be referring to? Anyway, to give some background, Israelis used to be able to opt to serve as civilians instead of drafting.
Should I loan this guy some cash?
Well, this might sound nice, the conditions were absolutely terrible.
Yeah, I'm pretty flush.
Decided to go on strike and stated that they wouldn't return to Israel until their conditions improved.
Won't forget this ringer.
The government appeared to give in to their demands, and the Negba returned to Israeli shores. But, in what seemed to be a blatant betrayal, the government declared that all the sailors on the Negba would be forcibly drafted into the IDF. The seamen felt completely shafted and announced that they would not come, refusing their summons. Soon, other sailors joined the revolt, and things reached an explosive climax when Israeli police literally had to storm the revolting ships and drag the sailors out of them. In all this chaos, Uri Avneri saw an opportunity. Before long, the revolt became the main focus of Holodomor.
Oh god, oh god, oh god, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. No,
this is the first time that the general Israeli public really began to take notice of Avneri's strange magazine. At this time, Israel was a somewhat authoritarian country in certain aspects. Basically, all major newspapers were pro-government, and the independence of the press was questionable at best. In addition, pornography was heavily censored by the government. Given all that, it should be no surprise that when Uri Avneri released an actually independent, anti-government magazine filled with nude photography, it took the country by storm. And before long, it became hard to find someone in Israel who wasn't reading Halolam Hazeh. The magazine did not hold back. Many of the most famous affairs in Israeli history, such as the Lavon affair, the Kastner affair, and the Bus 300 affair, were first exposed in Halolam Hazeh. Uri Avneri seemed to be able to find secrets about the government that no one else was able to. So, how'd he do it? Essentially, he was able to create human intelligence informant rings inside of the government. Essentially, since there were so many rivalries inside the Israeli government at this time, many of the top officials, despite being themselves attacked by Halolam Hazeh, would covertly leak secrets about their political enemies to the magazine. The irony was insane. Everyone in the government hated the magazine, but everyone secretly tried to use it as a weapon against their personal political enemies. And in the end,
that's how you do it.
Uri Avneri. To give you an idea of just how much this one magazine wound up influencing Israeli culture, so many words used in everyday Hebrew now were actually just invented by Avneri in his articles.
Oh, he's like the Israeli Shakespeare.
Meaning musical, chalalit, meaning spaceship, and lidfok, meaning to screw,
really?
Which originated from an article claiming that Israel was screwing the blacks. Anyway, if you wanted to understand just how deep Avneri's informant rings went, I want to tell you about one of the most insane stories of Avneri's career. But first, I'll need to talk about something that seemed completely unrelated. Archaeology battles between Israeli generals. Essentially, our story centers around two former IDF chiefs. The first was Israel's best general from the 1948 war, Yigal Yadin. The second was the legendary one-eyed general, Moshe Dayan, who's arguably the best Israeli general ever and is undoubtedly the drippiest. Anyway, after Yadin finished his military career, he took up an interest in archaeology and quickly grew in fame and prestige, becoming the biggest name in Israeli archaeological history. You can think of him as Indiana Jones. He would find artifacts in order to put them in museums. Meanwhile, Moshe Dayan also took up an interest in archaeology, during and after his military career, but his methods could not have been more different than Yadin's. If artifacts that Yadin found would end up in museums, artifacts that Dayan found were far more likely to end up on the Dayan family's coffee table. This sort of private artifact theft was of course completely illegal under Israeli law, but Dayan would continue secretly taking artifacts he found for himself using some really shady methods.
Stole that shit. That's what I do, nigga. Fuck, nigga, I stole that shit.
First of all, in order to avoid Israeli laws and bureaucracy, Dayan had much of the actual digging done by Arab tribesmen who would transfer the items to him via the black market. To this day, there is a massive Palestinian antique smuggling industry in the West Bank, and I'd argue that Dayan had a part to play in the growth of this industry. But the craziest story occurred during the 1956 Sinai War, when Dayan was still the chief of the Israeli military. While you'd think that he'd probably have more pressing things to worry about, Dayan became obsessed with the ancient Egyptian temple.
Is that worth going for? Yeah, it is.
And decided that he wanted it for himself. He ordered a group of Israeli helicopter pilots to essentially fly in a commando mission to the temple through a dangerous sandstorm, disassemble the pieces of the temple, and then fly them to
go
Israel,
and actually get it.
Would bring them to his house. He told the pilots that the mission was a matter of national security. Spoiler alert, it was not a matter of national security. And so the mission was carried out, and before long, all the pieces of the temple were reassembled in the courtyard of Dayan's house.
That's fucked up.
The pilots involved all kind of looked at each other and were like, did Dayan just steal a temple? But nobody said anything, and he mostly kept the incident under the radar. Much later, when Israel and Egypt signed a peace treaty, Egypt demanded that Dayan's stolen temple be returned as part of the deal, and he was forced to agree. Yet, when the temple pillars arrived in Egypt, they found that due to Dayan's mishandling, some of the pillars were covered in cracks. Bottom line was that almost everyone in the Israeli archaeology community kinda hated Dayan by this point, and especially Eliadin. Regarding the thefts, he famously said, "I know who did it, and I'm not gonna say who it is, but if I catch him, I'll poke out his other eye too." But Dayan's looting was only truly blown wide open when Uri Avneri published a massive scorched earth expose in Ha'olam Hazeh. Yeah, I bet you were wondering when this would all come back to Avneri. In addition, later on Avneri also exposed that Dayan was being blackmailed by his secret mistress's mom in a really weird episode of Israeli history called the Elisheva affair. But interestingly enough, while the archaeological theft affair seriously hurt Dayan's image, the exposure of his extramarital affair only contributed to the sort of alpha male persona that he had cultivated, and it only increased his popularity. But still, Dayan just about had enough of Avneri's journalistic antics. Uri Avneri just exposed that I was cheating on my wife. Can that man get any worse? Well, sir, we actually think he may be lidfoking your daughter.
What?
Oh, you see, lidfok is this cool new slang term invented by Uri Avneri. It means to screw.
I know what it means.
Alright, let me explain. Dayan at this time was informed by Israeli internal intelligence that the person leaking all of his secrets to his biggest enemy was none other than his own daughter, Yael Dayan. According to the intelligence, Yael, who was underage at that time, had been secretly meeting Avneri and transferring files containing state secrets to him. That wasn't all. Due to the nature of the meetings, it was assumed by many people that the two were in an inappropriate relationship, and Dayan was sure that his most hated enemy was also grooming his daughter on the side. That was it. Dayan had had enough of Avneri's shadowy actions. According to Avneri, Dayan dispatched a hired hit team to take care of him once and for all. One time, while Avneri was out with his deputy editor, Shalom Cohen, they were attacked by Dayan's thugs. Cohen was hit hard on the head, knocking him out and leaving him with brain damage. The thugs then tried to drag Avneri off, but he fought back and they ran away. However, in the entire confrontation, all of his fingers were broken. This would wind up being a big problem for him. Without his fingers, he could barely take care of himself. So, during the next few weeks, a girl he knew named Rachel came to stay with him in his apartment. She bandaged his wounds and helped him perform daily tasks that he was no longer able to as he healed. He would later go on to...
Oh, I'm almost at Delta V.
Looking back, he said that he was thankful to Moshe Dayan for the whole incident
Well,
because it helped
we'll
him
do
find
this
true
rock
love.
and then...
I can only imagine what his friend Shalom Cohen, who had gotten brain damage in the same incident, thought when he heard Avneri say that. But Avneri's most heated rivalry was not with Moshe Dayan, but rather with Israel's first Prime Minister, David Ben-Gurion. Avneri attacked Ben-Gurion without stopping and exposed many of his biggest secrets. For instance, Ha'olam Hazeh was the first major Israeli newspaper to expose an event called the Kfar Qasim massacre, where Israeli soldiers had killed multiple Arab farmers who were returning from work. Although I must say, it begs the question, how exactly did Avneri report on that event? Did he put a few blank pages between the magazine's usual contents and the description of the crime, or was it just boobies, Kfar Qasim massacre, then back for more boobies? But anyway, tensions with Ben-Gurion would reach their breaking point when Avneri accused his son, Amos Ben-Gurion, of corruption, forcing him to resign as deputy chief of the Israeli police. Now, David Ben-Gurion was an interesting man when it came to how he dealt with criticism. Sometimes he actually welcomed and encouraged criticism of himself and of the Israeli government. Yet on other occasions, he would brutally crack down on dissident speech. This was one of those times. So Ben-Gurion went to his chief of intelligence, Isser Harel, better known as Little Isser, and told him that Avneri's anti-state activities had to be stopped at any cost. Isser was like, "Are you sure, man? That seems kinda morally questionable." And Ben-Gurion was like, "Look, I think he's a communist or something probably." And Isser was like, "Understood, the problem will be dealt with." Now, in addition to the Mossad, Isser also commanded Israel's internal intelligence service, the Shin Bet. Now, the 1950s were a bit of a weird time for the Shin Bet because the Israeli leadership didn't seem completely sure about what exactly they were supposed to do with them. And it becomes apparent if you look at the first missions that they received from Ben-Gurion. "Alright, Ben-Gurion, my brand new intelligence agency is ready to be used. So, what do you want us doing? We're going to be infiltrating other countries, weeding out spies in Israel?" Well, no. You see, I've been trying to make mandatory food rationing a thing in Israel, and nobody's going along with it. It's getting me so annoyed. I recently found out that a certain fridge company has been smuggling extra food to people in their fridges. I mean, can you believe it? I want your Shin Bet to find out everything there is to know about the illegal refrigerator industry in Israel. I want you to plant undercover secret agents inside these fridge factories. Actually, scratch that.
No, that sounds like a pretty good first mission. What the fuck?
Infiltrate the underground meat market from the inside.
I didn't see that coming.
How this whole intelligence agency thing is supposed to work, do you? No, I absolutely do not. By the way, that actually happened. Anyway, Isser was probably thrilled to have been given a task that didn't have anything to do with refrigerators. He got to work, turning Avneri's life into a living nightmare. He would later state that at this time he considered Avneri to be Israel's public enemy #1. According to Avneri, the Shin Bet sent guys to beat him up, and the offices of Ha'olam Hazeh were firebombed multiple times in the middle of the night. Although, to be fair to the Shin Bet, they didn't carry out all of those bombings. Some of the bombings in the newspaper were actually carried out by a theocratic far-right militia called the Kingdom of Israel. And no, I'm not going to elaborate on those guys. Just believe me when I say that 1950s Israeli politics were absolutely insane. At this point, Avneri understood exactly what was going on, but he just couldn't explain it to anyone. That's because at this time, the existence of the Shin Bet wasn't actually publicly known, and it was kept as a closely guarded state secret. And Israel didn't even
Ben-Gurion
officially
called
exist.
himself a Bolshevik.
They were secret police in
Interesting.
the most literal sense. Because of this, when Avneri ranted in his articles that he was being gang-stalked and monitored by a mysterious deep state cabal that he called the Darkness Mechanism, he probably sounded absolutely schizophrenic. Yet, despite all the harassment, Avneri was undeterred, and Issa realized that he would need to play Avneri's game if he wanted to defeat him. So he came up with an ingenious plan.
Okay, I'm gonna restart the
Shin Bet
game
secretly
in the
created
hopes
their
that
own
it won't
magazine
be
that
a
was
fucking
half politics and half
slideshow.
photography. They named it Rimon, meaning pomegranate. Because of the massive amounts of money being poured into it, it was of a much higher quality than Ha'olam Hazeh. The goal was to draw the readers of Ha'olam Hazeh to a more pro-government magazine. But by never criticizing
fuck
the
you,
government,
we'll
we
make
were not
pro-government
lost what made
porn.
Ha'olam Hazeh so successful. It gave the people a reason to come, but not a reason to stay, and it was never successful in cultivating a reader base like Ha'olam Hazeh had. After some time, little Isser was forced to address the fact that he had spent millions of taxpayer shekels on a porn magazine that nobody read, and Rimon was shut down. By this point, Ben-Gurion was becoming more and more furious that little Isser wasn't managing to defeat Avneri. It got to a point where Ben-Gurion refused
Nope,
to
still a
even utter the name
slideshow.
Ha'olam Hazeh.
Well,
Instead, he wanted to call it
that's
that
fucked.
particular magazine. With Isser and the Shin Bet failing at their tasks, Ben-Gurion started his own attempts to bring down Avneri's reputation. Ben-Gurion allegedly funded the production of a play called Throw 'em to the Dogs,
A
which
lot of
centered
early
around
Israeli
an evil and corrupt
politicians
journalist who was
like
a
the
clear
Soviet
stand-in for
Union.
Avneri.
That's interesting.
The
I
evil journalist was sparing
know.
people's lives, and the play ends with all
I
the
know
characters
there was a
speaking up
big
and loudly
immigration
asserting.
wave
If the messaging wasn't already clear
of
enough, Ben-Gurion announced that he
Jews
was attending
from the
play
Soviet Union
along
into
with early
Israel.
President Yitzhak Ben-Zvi and basically every single
Naive.
member in the Israeli government.
Hi, HEV
Yet,
Gaming.
Ben-Gurion
Welcome
had pushed
back.
things too far this time.
But naively, I would think that they would be against the Soviet Union. Maybe they.
wrote angry articles
I don't know.
about it. Instead of uniting people against Avneri, the play had only managed to bring otherwise neutral papers onto his side. Due to the public backlash, the playwriter was even forced to add in a token good journalist character, who would attempt to dissuade the evil journalist from his destructive ways. Yet, the damage was already done, and when Ben-Gurion was seen laughing
It couldn't
hysterically
be
and
used
clapping
to
at the premiere,
infiltrate
which
the
he had
country.
essentially dragged every Israeli minister to, he just wound up looking completely pathetic. Ben-Gurion was furious that none of his attempts were succeeding, when suddenly he seemed to realize, wait a minute, I'm the Prime Minister.
Hello.
I could just arrest people. So he played his trump card. He told Little Isser to arrest Avneri under charges of being a Soviet spy. Now at this point,
Wonder if
Isser
I
was
can,
dealing
like,
with the
change
ridiculous
the
amount of actual
graphics settings or
Soviet
something?
spies who had infiltrated Israel. For more info on that, you can go watch my Zev Avni video. But anyway, Isser made Joseph McCarthy look like Karl Marx. Because of that, the moment Ben-Gurion uttered the word communist, Isser was completely ready to arrest Avneri. But Ben-Gurion felt like he couldn't just arrest someone as famous as Avneri without the approval of his main political opposition, the leader of the Israeli right wing, Menachem Begin. So Ben-Gurion went
That
to
helped a
Begin
little.
and tried to get him to sign off on the arrest. Considering that Avneri held far-left views and Begin was a devoted right-winger, you might have expected him to support the arrest. But instead, Begin flipped out, angrily asking Ben-Gurion how he could even think of making a move this authoritarian. He said that he would not let Ben-Gurion arrest Avneri under any circumstances, so Ben-Gurion was forced to abandon this plan as well. The incident would actually be the beginning of a sort of friendship that would form between Uri Avneri and Menachem Begin, but we'll get back to that later in the video. Completely exhausted of all of his options, Ben-Gurion did the only thing that remained for him to do. He passed a law called the Slander Law, which would criminalize certain types of media slander, and in particular, Ha'olam Hazeh. The law was meticulously worded to have no loopholes, and when Uri Avneri heard, he was devastated. This was it. There was no coming back. This was the end of Ha'olam Hazeh. Unless... Suddenly, Avneri started thinking up one of the most insane plans in Israeli history. He realized that the law only applied to ordinary citizens, and there was exactly one group of people who could print whatever they wanted and remain entirely untouchable by the courts. Members of Parliament. If the system was going to use Parliament to destroy his magazine, then he would bring his magazine into the Parliament. And so, in a move that shocked literally everyone, Avneri announced that Ha'olam Hazeh would now become a political party and run for the Israeli Parliament, better known as the Knesset. But first, he would need to choose what letter would be on the party's ballots. Let me explain. In Israeli elections, each party is assigned a Hebrew letter or multiple letters to represent their party. Avneri wanted to use the letter Shin, which was the first letter of the word Shalom, the Hebrew word for peace. But some religious parties already wanted to use Shin. So, Avneri did some genius reverse psychology. He announced that he would be running
Is there an
with the letter
actual
Hey.
reason
In
to
Judaism, the letter
go to
Hazel
the
is
hotel?
shorthand for God. The idea of a porn magazine running with the name of God on their ballot was so ridiculously blasphemous that the religious parties just let Avneri keep the letter Shin. Once again, Avneri had outthought his political opponents. The Ha'olam party ran on an aggressive platform of reform and secularism, and when the elections rolled around, they actually managed to win a single seat in the Knesset, which of course was taken by Uri Avneri. Only as Avneri triumphantly walked into the Knesset did Ben-Gurion truly understand how much his campaign had backfired. Instead of taking care of the threat Avneri posed to him,
Improvements
he wound
to
up
crew
turning
morale
Avneri into a
and
politician
being able
with
to
actual
skip more
political
time
power
in
and
one
parliamentary
go.
immunity. His enemy was now
I'll give it
more
a shot
powerful
then.
and
It's only
emboldened than
$600 dollars.
Ben-Gurion had sown the wind, and now he would reap the whirlwind. When Avneri entered the Knesset, he actually received approval from the most unexpected source. His sworn enemy, Moshe Dayan, came up to him and shook his hand, congratulating him on his achievement. Despite how much they disagreed on everything, Dayan was a warrior at heart. He couldn't help but respect the sheer resolve that Avneri had displayed in his solo war against the Israeli establishment. It's a pretty wholesome moment once you forget that Dayan had sent the hired hit team after Avneri and that there were active allegations that Avneri had groomed Dayan's daughter, but let's forget all of that. Dayan's enthusiasm was not shared by Ben-Gurion, who was completely dumbstruck that Avneri had actually managed to pull this off. His anger is visible in photos like this, where you see Avneri trying to give a speech at the podium, as an out-of-focus Ben-Gurion gives him an absolute death stare from the background. Avneri became known as the busiest politician in the Knesset. He delivered over 1,000 speeches, proposed hundreds of laws, and was the only member of Knesset who never missed a single parliament session. He was also the first member of Knesset to be forcibly dragged off the podium while he was making a speech, although he'd by no means be the last. In addition, Avneri continued being the editor-in-chief of Ha'olam the magazine despite being a Knesset member, and the magazine only continued to grow in popularity.
I'm gonna be honest,
Later
seems
on,
like
he would even
turning down the
reveal
resolution
classified
just makes the
information
game look
that
like
the
shit
Knesset
and doesn't actually improve anything.
Avneri also realized that now he could kind
Can I
of say whatever
change
he
that
wanted, and
back?
he would casually admit to having done illegal drugs while he was a Knesset member. Anyway, Avneri proposed a number of drastic reforms. He attempted to introduce legislation that would decriminalize homosexuality and abortion, but the laws never passed. But his most controversial venture may actually have been his attempt to bring the Beatles to Israel. Avneri thought that having the Beatles perform in Israel would be great for Israeli culture, and he started making preparations for a Beatles concert. Yet, the Israeli Culture Ministry responded to him saying, and I quote, "The Beatles have no artistic or cultural value whatsoever, and they were banned from coming to Israel." And I mean, like, anyway, the Culture Ministry also claimed that a Beatles concert would lead to riots among the youth. And to be fair, that's basically what wound up happening many years later.
Okay, this is a little too far in the other direction.
Remind me at some point of a video about the Israeli Michael Jackson religious riots. I don't have time to get into that now.
It also isn't
But Avneri's
helping.
biggest project was his plot to launch a massive Palestinian revolt. Let me explain. Contrary to what these maps will show you, in the 50s, the West Bank was not under Palestinian control, but rather it was ruled by neighboring Jordan. At this time, Jordan and Israel were serious enemies, and Avneri felt that the only way to resolve the conflict was to support a revolt of the Palestinians in the West Bank that would lead to an independent Palestinian state. And this state would hopefully become an ally of Israel. I hope it's needless to say that every other member of the Knesset thought that he was legitimately insane, and his Palestinian revolt plan received no support from any other political figure. But that isn't to say that none of Avneri's political endeavors succeeded. Many recognizable things in modern Israel trace back to Uri Avneri's legislative battles in the Knesset. For instance, Avneri was of the opinion that free transportation should be given to all IDF soldiers, and sure enough, that eventually became the law. Eventually, 1967 rolled around and Israel fought the Six-Day War against basically all of its neighbors. Israel won the war and captured the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. Avneri was ecstatic, and after the war,
Resolution
he had a famous
scale is
conversation
more
with the new Israeli
intended for
Prime
very
Minister,
high
Levi
resolution
Eshkol.
monitors.
We did it,
More than
Eshkol.
anything,
We defeated those
like
oppressive
4K
Arab
and
regimes.
higher.
Now
You
we
will
can
see the
finally
best
create a
improvements from
Palestinian
turning
state.
off rocket
what
plumes
did we even
and
fight this war
explosion
for if not to create a
particles.
state for the Palestinians?
As little as
As little as it seems doing that changes thing, yeah.
Avneri was furious when nobody in the Israeli government even seemed to consider the possibility of...
Yeah, it seems like something's actually, like, broken.
That is to say that Avneri didn't affect
But,
Israeli policy
I'm on
and
stream, so I can't fix it.
To understand how, let's look at what happened in the city of Kalkilia. The
So we'll just
Palestinian city
deal
of
with the
Kalkilia
slideshow.
is located right on the Israeli border, and the Palestinians had taken advantage of that fact, creating many sniper nests which they used to shoot at passing Israeli civilian traffic. Many Israelis were killed in these attacks, and the city sort of became associated with death. I mean, hell, it even has Kilia in the name. When Israel conquered the town, the Israeli military planned a series of large-scale demolitions to destroy the sniper nests, which would have involved the destruction of many civilian homes in Kalkilia. But when Uri Avneri heard about the plan, he used his powers as a Knesset member to cancel the plan, and Avneri is pretty much the only reason that much of the city of Kalkilia exists to this day. Anyway, Avneri's political activities won him a lot of support, and in the 1969 elections, Ha'olam actually won 2 seats in the Knesset this time. Avneri gave the second seat to his deputy, Shalom Cohen. Yet, like all good leftist political movements, it would quickly fracture, with Avneri and Cohen each accusing the other of trying to control every aspect of the party. Cohen wound up despising Avneri so much that he literally wrote a tell-all book exposing the, quote, evil side of Avneri. This infighting led to the collapse of the Olamazet party. Without his signature party, Avneri went through a weird period.
Damn it.
Where he was in and out of Knesset representing all sorts
Well,
of...
luckily that didn't actually hit anything.
Constantly fracturing and merging. I actually made a 7-minute section of this video explaining in detail the evolution of leftist parties in 70s Israel before I realized that literally nobody wants to hear that crap and cut it. All you need to know is that by 1977, Avneri had returned to the Knesset. This time, he was leading a political alliance called the Shelley Camp.
Well, what if I want to hear it?
Notably included,
What then?
No, there is no way. Moshe Dayan's ex-wife? There's no way. This guy was collecting members of the Dayan family like they were the Infinity Stones. Seems like that feud ran pretty deep. At this time, the nationalist Likud party had taken power.
God damn it.
While you might associate the Likud with its current leader, Benjamin Netanyahu, at this time it was led by the right-wing politician Menachem Begin. They'd probably expect Avneri, being a leftist, to oppose Begin, yet, as I mentioned before, their relationship was unusually friendly, even though they frequently disagreed. Their relationship actually went back years. In his youth, Avneri had fought in the Irgun, a right-wing militia led by Begin, and later on, Begin
I just
saved
toasted
Avneri
my
when
buddy.
Ben-Gurion tried
Shit.
to have him arrested.
Sorry, buddy.
One time, Avneri and his wife had gone to watch a really sad movie in the theater. When the light came on, they saw Menachem Begin in the front row in front of them crying uncontrollably. He then turned around, wiped the tears from his eyes, and kissed Avneri's wife on the brow. Personally, this weird-ass story only gives me more questions than answers.
Based?
Most importantly, what? Like, you know, like if you went to a movie with your girlfriend and then you see Donald Trump in the row in front of you with tears in his eyes going, it's just so peak, and then he turns around and starts kissing your girlfriend? Actually, on second thought, I can absolutely imagine that happening. Anyway, bottom line was that Avneri and Prime Minister Begin already had an established relationship, and they got along surprisingly well. Avneri strongly supported Begin's efforts to make peace with Egypt, and in return, when peace with Egypt was reached, Begin brought Avneri to Egypt to meet with Egyptian President Anwar Sadat. This was a
Actually, I
real
want
high
that one.
point in Avneri's life, but things would quickly take a turn for the worse. Around this time, a 21-year-old mentally ill man became convinced that
Nope.
Uri Avneri had planted a listening device
Nope.
inside of his skull, and he attempted to kill Avneri in a heartbreaking case of schizo-on-schizo violence. The attempt failed completely, and
Oh
the
shit,
man was
9
arrested by
grand.
the cops and then immediately released. He proceeded to head straight back to Uri Avneri and stab him in the heart. Avneri was rushed to the hospital in a critical state. He survived, but if the stab had been moved even a fraction of a centimeter, he almost certainly would have died. While Avneri was recovering in the hospital, his first visitor was the one you would least expect. The far-right Israeli politician Rechavam Ze'evi. It's hard to overstate just how diametrically opposed these two men were. While Avneri supported the Palestinians, Ze'evi called for a total transfer of all Palestinians to neighboring countries. He believed that if Israel was willing to pay enough money, the Palestinians would happily pack their things and move to Jordan in exchange for compensation. In addition, Ze'evi had allegedly summarily executed multiple Palestinian prisoners during his controversial military career. Ze'evi was universally known in Israel by his nickname Gandhi, but the only Gandhi he resembled was the one from Sid Meier's Civilization. Yet, despite their complete disagreement on every single political question, Avneri and Ze'evi had a weirdly friendly relationship. When the hired thugs had attacked Avneri and broken his fingers, it had actually been Ze'evi who had informed him that they had been sent by Moshe Dayan. And now, as Avneri lay in bed, half dead, Rechavam Ze'evi walked into the hospital room and handed Avneri a gun. He told him that he should learn to use it well once he recovered, in order to prevent similar assassination attempts in the future. From that day on, Avneri would not go anywhere without his trusty pistol. Around this time, Avneri failed to be re-elected to the Knesset, marking the end of his time as a lawmaker. But that was not the end of Avneri's story. On the contrary, this is where it actually starts getting interesting. Because this is where we leave behind the world of petty Israeli government drama and move on to the world of covert assassination, spy wars, and rogue wartime diplomacy. But before we talk about all that, a quick word from my sponsor, myself. Are you interested in going all the way down the iceberg and diving deep into the world of obscure Middle Eastern history?
Yes,
Almost every
yes.
channel on YouTube that talks about Israel or similar topics is usually so busy trying to push some agenda that they forget to even say anything original or interesting. That's not even touching the various AI Slav channels that a surprising amount of people actually watch in order to learn from. With this channel, I want to actually go beyond the headlines and talk about things that not many people know, in order to help you get a much deeper understanding of these sorts of topics. But I need your help. Due to their content, basically all my videos are demonetized.
Can't
That's why I
imagine
created
why.
Patreon, where you can help fund my videos. Patreon is basically the only way I can make money from YouTube, so if you learned something new from this video and are interested in more rabbit hole deep dives,
Alright, go subscribe to this guy's Patreon so I don't feel bad
Anyway,
about
back
stealing
to
his
it now.
content.
Around this time, the neighboring country of Lebanon descended into a Basilian-sided civil war. Now, I'm not going to make an attempt to explain the Lebanese civil war because I'm not a masochist, but What you need to know is that one of the main factions was the Palestine Liberation Organization, aka the PLO, led by its charismatic leader Yasser Arafat, and they controlled significant portions of the capital city, Beirut. The PLO was also in conflict with Israel, and this conflict led to Israel launching a full-scale invasion of Lebanon and laying siege to the city of Beirut. It was while the siege was going on that Uri Avneri received a phone call that would change his life forever. Yo, did I reach Uri Avneri? It's me, Igman Shakur, do you remember me? I used to write for the Arabic edition of Ha'olam Hazeh. Now I work for the Palestine Liberation Organization, and I'm Yasser Arafat's personal advisor for Israeli affairs. How's it been going, man? Yo, Shakur, wait, did you say you work for the PLO now? Just go with it, man. Anyway, I called you to offer you the opportunity of your lifetime. How would you like to interview Yasser Arafat, the leader of the Palestinians, the man Israel is currently fighting a war against? You do something that no Israeli journalist has ever done and cement yourself in the history books of journalism. If you're interested, just sneak yourself into Beirut. We'll be waiting. Avneri immediately jumped at the opportunity. He brought along 2 female photographers and snuck into Beirut pretending to be a German journalist. In Beirut, which was
that was a
between the
shit-ass
Palestinian
rock.
factions, Avneri casually snuck through an
I
IDF
can grab
checkpoint,
that.
a Syrian
Come on.
army checkpoint, a right-wing Maronite Christian militia checkpoint, and a PLO Palestinian checkpoint. If you aren't Lebanese and aren't familiar with the absolute hell on earth that was the Lebanese Civil War, it's impossible to explain just how utterly suicidal that sentence is. If an Israeli with a pistol in his pocket had been caught in almost any of these, he would have been executed at the spot. Hell, sometimes they'd still kill you even if you were from their preferred ethnicity. But Avneri safely reached Arafat's hideout. Avneri was kind of scared. This was Yasser Arafat, Israel's most wanted enemy. He had never met an Israeli before. Who knew how this meeting would end? Who knew if he would even walk out alive? Avneri took a deep breath and walked into the room. Hello, Mr. Arafat. My name is Uri.
Oh my god, are you actually Uri Avneri? Oh my god, I'm like your biggest fan. I was obsessed with Ha'olam Hazeh. I used to read it non-stop. I used to have Imad smuggle issues of the Arabic edition of Ha'olam Hazeh to Lebanon so I could read them. Basically, everything I know about Israeli culture comes from your magazines. Oh my god, I can't believe this is actually happening.
Well, this is unexpected. To Avneri's shock, it turned out that Arafat was actually a huge fan of Avneri's work in Ha'olam Hazeh, and used to read the Arabic edition, which, by the way, was even more pornographic than the Hebrew one. With the ice now broken, Avneri and Arafat began their friendly interview. Arafat even showed Avneri the Israeli soldier Aron Achiaz, who had been captured by the Palestinians and was now being held captive in Arafat's compound. Tell him to bring in the gimp. Oh my god. Uri Avneri? You're an Israeli politician. My prayers have been answered. You must have come to negotiate with the Palestinians for my release. Oh, sorry, dude. I'm not a politician anymore. I'm kind of just here to chat with Arafat. Good luck, though, I guess.
What?
Anyway, Avneri's interview with Arafat was going great, and both men were having a great time. But things were about to take a turn for the worse. Because Avneri had accidentally just stepped into a top-secret Mossad assassination mission, and some of the deadliest assassins on the planet were now trailing him. Let me explain. At this time, Israel really wanted to kill Yasser Arafat. And I mean really wanted to kill him. In his book, Rise and Kill First, Israeli journalist Ronen Bergman explains that the Mossad launched what was called Operation Saltfish, with the goal being the assassination
System.
of Arafat.
Ben Gurion was
Yet
gay
each attempt
too.
ended in failure, leading them to constantly switch between all sorts of ridiculous assassination methods. You guys know those CIA attempts to kill Castro during the 60s? Well, imagine if the methods used were even more insane, and that's basically what Operation Saltfish was. I think the craziest attempt was undoubtedly when the Mossad tried to literally hypnotize some Palestinian guy into becoming a sleeper agent assassin who would kill Arafat for them. For more info on that, you can watch the video I made about it. Or, on second thought, actually don't do that because it's the first video I ever made on YouTube and it's embarrassingly bad. Around this time, Operation Saltfish had faced some of its most embarrassing failures yet. In his book, Bergman explains that at one point, the Mossad got word of a civilian plane flying over the Mediterranean which was carrying Arafat and the PLO High Command. Israeli fighter jets were sent to shoot the plane down. Every Israeli official gave permission to shoot the plane down, except for one. The chief of the IDF's research division, Brigadier General Amos Gilboa. Sir, we have the plane in sight. Can we shoot it down? No, you may not. What? Why not? Because nothing ever happens. Sir, what do you mean?
I meant
I mean that
Arafat.
nothing ever happens.
But that's an okay
I simply can't bring
assumption.
myself to believe that Arafat and the PLO High Command would all get
Toxic
It's
Yowie.
too good to be true. I refuse to give permission. As it would turn out, General Gilboa's gut feeling had been right, and Arafat had never been on the plane. But by this point, Arafat realized that Israel was trying to whack him, and he started becoming more and more elusive and difficult to track. The Mossad began worrying that perhaps they would never manage to get to Arafat, when suddenly a savior descended to them from heaven. The savior's name was Uri Avneri. The Mossad received intelligence that Avneri was planning a secret trip to Beirut to meet with Arafat. They realized that they could secretly tail Avneri, who would unknowingly bring them right to the target of their assassination plans. It was perfect. Bergman explains that before the assassination, multiple Mossad officials had a meeting to discuss the elephant in the room. If If the opportunity arose to bomb the meeting, would it be alright to kill Avneri in order to take out Arafat? While it was certainly kind of taboo to casually assassinate one of your own country's most famous ex-politicians, the officials decided that taking out Arafat, Israel's #1 enemy, was simply too important. Plus, Avneri wasn't even supposed to be in Beirut anyway. He had illegally crossed active war lines out of his own free will. The final verdict?
He dies. He dies.
Yet thankfully for Avneri, Arafat's extreme paranoia would come in clutch. When bringing Avneri to his hideout, he used all sorts of advanced tactics.
I mean, it's not paranoia if they're actually trying to kill you.
To Arafat would fail as well. Anyway, when Avneri finished his historic interview and returned to Israel, his fame skyrocketed, and he became the most talked about and controversial journalist in Israel. But the meeting would wind up creating problems in Avneri's personal life. Following the interview, there were reports that Avneri's mother had disinherited him from her will because he had met with Arafat. Avneri angrily responded to these allegations, saying that his mother didn't disinherit him because he had met with Yasser Arafat.
Anomaly.
Rather, he had neglected his mother over a long period of time and hadn't gone to meet her in months. Avneri explained that the final straw for her was watching her son visit a terrorist leader before visiting his own
I guess I could go check it out.
Dude, you realize that story doesn't make you look any better. Like, why in the world would you add that fact? But it wasn't just Avneri's mother who was upset at the interview. His wife Rachel, who had always been a big part of his political life, felt jealous and betrayed that he had gone with 2 female journalists to meet with Arafat but hadn't even taken her. Look at you. You're back late. I know where you've been. You've been in Beirut, meeting Yasser Arafat with other women behind my back. Don't even try to deny it. It was a high-stakes geopolitical interview. The Mossad was trying to kill us, Rachel. I was under a lot of stress, okay? If you really love me, you'd take me with you to get assassinated by the Mossad. Spurred on by pure emotion, Rachel took a course in photography, just so that she could go everywhere with her husband and so that he wouldn't need to rely on some female photographer that she didn't know. Honestly, that's relationship goals. Anyway, Avneri's legendary meeting with Arafat wasn't his only run-in with the PLO, and he secretly met with plenty of other PLO officials. The one he was closest to was the senior PLO figure, Issam Sartawi. Sartawi was enthusiastic about his meetings with Avneri, maybe a bit too enthusiastic.
I don't know if that's salvage. Oh, it's an asshole. Okay.
Went to Arafat
well, time to die, moron.
Arafat, I just had the craziest idea.
Let me click. God damn it.
Council, which is like our parliament, is about to have its big meeting. I think that what this meeting is missing is an Israeli delegation, which is going to be led by Uri Avneri.
Did that guy set me up?
And was like, are you actually retarded? Yeah, Sartawi's willingness to talk to Israelis like Avneri would become so hated by Palestinian hardliners that he would eventually be assassinated by rivals from within his own party. Eventually, the new Israeli Prime Minister, Yitzhak Rabin, called Avneri into his office and was like, look man, I know that you're illegally meeting with Palestinian militants. I can tell you to stop, but I know you're not going to listen to me, so I just have one request. After every meeting, I want you to come here and
is that gas coming out of my ship?
And so,
it is.
Despite it being illegal under Israeli law to meet with PLO officials, Rabin and the PLO used Avneri as a way to conduct unofficial negotiations.
Well, I'm still going to kill you.
These would eventually lead to official negotiations, which would lead to the Oslo Accords. And it all started with Uri Avneri. Anyway, by the time the 90s rolled around, Avneri was facing serious financial problems, and he was eventually forced to sell ownership of Ha'olam Hazeh. Without its iconic editor, the magazine faded into obscurity.
No, you get back here. I'm not done.
Without a political position,
I didn't hear no bell.
Avneri was able to fully dedicate the rest of his life to political activism. And he founded a radical political movement called Gush Shalom, meaning the Peace Bloc, which focused on promoting peace between Israel and the Palestinians. And Jesus Christ, that is the ugliest logo I've ever seen. Oh my god.
Oh my god.
It would seem that
86 grand.
Graphic design skills died with Ha'olam Hazeh. Gush Shalom would first come to prominence when the Israeli government announced that they would be deporting multiple Palestinian Islamic Jihad and Hamas leaders.
Oh man, do I go for the rock or the bad guy?
Like,
I'm going for the bad guy.
Hamas, we're always going to support our Palestinian. But wait, you're saying them to us? Hell no. Like most Arab countries, Lebanon was very happy to support the Palestinians as long as that didn't involve letting Palestinians into their country. Yasser Arafat and the PLO had only recently been kicked out of Lebanon, and the Lebanese people did not want a repeat of their civil war, and they refused to let the Hamas members cross the border. And so you wound up with this really weird time period where you kind of just had this Hamas entity just kind of existing on the Israeli-Lebanese border. Avneri was furious when he heard about the deportations.
I'm gonna pop you like a bag of fucking popcorn, buddy.
Avneri would state that while he strongly opposed Hamas's ideology, he felt that these sorts of deportations were authoritarian and undemocratic. The protests actually worked, and Israel caved and allowed the Hamas leaders to return to Gaza. In a move that surprised everyone, Hamas actually invited Avneri to the Welcome Home event and called on him to give a speech. They didn't like him, but even they realized that he was a big reason that they had even been allowed to return in the first place. It was at this event that Avneri met with every big name in Hamas, including the future leader, Abdelaziz al-Rantisi, who was nicknamed the Lion of Palestine. Because of his history with Avneri, Rantisi would actually go on
I'm running out of Delta V.
Hamas leader. It would support negotiations with it.
Spin, idiot. Yeah, get spinned. Okay, stop.
Famously
Stop.
Said that not even a single Jew in Palestine would be safe.
a policy that seemed to include his old pal Uri Avneri.
Oh, I'm out of gas.
The Rentisi
Like
children's
entirely.
hospital
Okay,
was
well,
named after him.
but I want to kill this guy.
A major conflict broke out between Israel
Okay.
and the Palestinians.
I'm putting his death over my life.
Avneri
Fuck it.
continued with his pro-Palestine activism, which made him a more controversial figure than ever. The far-right activist, Baruch Marzel, actively called on the Israeli government to assassinate Avneri. At one point, the Israeli Internal Intelligence Agency, the Shin Bet, had to take Avneri aside and explain to him that there were multiple active plots to harm or assassinate him. Dude, you need to be careful. We've received intelligence.
All right,
that
well, now
multiple
I'm
people
dead
are
in the
plotting to
water.
kill you.
There we go.
Well, I better take this seriously. After all, nobody knows more about plots to kill me than the Shin Bet. Dude, that was like 30 years ago. Can you please just let it go? Anyway, at this time the entire world's eyes were on Yasser Arafat, who is now serving as the Palestinian president. By the way, only while editing this video did I notice the absolute insanity that's going on with Yasser Arafat's pins. Like, what the hell? This is looking like some Hollow Knight Infinite Charm mod. He's just like, yeah, put some bullshit on my chest. I mean, this legitimately gets weirder the longer you look at it. You know, you see, if you wanted to support Palestine, you'd wear one Palestine flag pin, maybe two. Arafat was out here rocking 11 Palestine flag pins. You see, that's why they made him the leader. Also, is that a Jewish menorah? I mean, this feels like a run of Elden Ring where you equip dumb-looking equipment because you're trying to min-max the best possible stats. I mean, I could totally imagine Arafat trying to explain to some Palestinian hardliner that the menorah pin gives him an extra +5 financial skill or something. Sorry, I got distracted there. Anyway, the friendship between Arafat and Avneri had only grown stronger over the years. When Arafat made his triumphant return from exile to Gaza, he had Avneri play a central role in the homecoming ceremony. But as the Intifada escalated, Arafat began supporting the attacks against Israel. As relations between Israel and Arafat's government broke down, Israeli troops laid siege to Arafat's compound in the city of Ramallah.
How much is that going to cost me? 75 grand. Okay, well,
so Avneri took
fuck.
a drastic step to protect his friend. He announced that he would be traveling to Arafat's compound to act, and these are his words, not mine, as Arafat's personal human shield. He brought along his wife Rachel this time, as well as a ragtag group of activists, leftists, and very brave prostitutes. Avneri wrote extensively about his time under siege in Arafat's compound and all the ridiculous things that happened to him there. I'm not going to go into everything because this video is already long enough as it is. As for Arafat, I can only guess as to how he felt about Avneri crashing his place with a bunch of hookers while he was trying to run an intifada. In the cramped compound where the electricity was constantly being cut off, the tension would slowly rise, and the shenanigans that happened there started to gradually get weirder and weirder. At one point, Arafat even went up to Avneri's wife and kissed her on the brow. This was the second time that a world leader had randomly kissed Avneri's wife in front of him. I can't imagine that he was too thrilled. Although if you think about it, Rachel Avneri is the only person in history to be kissed both by the Palestinian president and the Israeli prime minister. If only Avneri was able to see that the key to the peace that he so desired between Israel and the Palestinians was actually their shared love for his wife. I mean, hell, I was even able to find this picture of former Israeli Prime Minister Ariel Sharon feeding Rachel with a spoon, although I have no idea what the context is. Anyway, looking back at his time as a professional human shield, Avneri would state that he believed that his presence at the compound had saved Arafat's life. But here's the ultimate irony. Avneri had no idea that only 20 years earlier, the Mossad had come to the explicit decision that killing Uri Avneri was okay as long as it was necessary to take out Arafat. In all likelihood, if Israel had actually wanted to take out Arafat in his compound, Avneri being there probably wouldn't have made much of a difference. In the following years, Avneri continued his pro-Palestine political activism with Gush Shalom.
I can't go back there, can I?
Most people in Israel absolutely hated him, but he would always state that he didn't care.
No.
Wait a minute, what the hell is this weird-ass beef footage? Turn this crap off. Alright, thank you, that's better. Looking back, I would argue that there may not have been any figure who was as involved in Israel's political history as Uri Avneri was. The guy was basically Forrest Gump. From the pre-state era up until the modern era,
I can still go there.
Not a single major event in Israeli history where Avneri's name doesn't come up if you poke deep enough. I mean, seriously, take a look at this guy's career. He started off as an immigrant who was obsessed with fascism and fought the British in a right-wing militia. He joined the IDF and became the most famous Israeli war hero in the 1948 war. He then started Ha'alam Hazeh and turned it into the first real Israeli opposition newspaper, with the scandals he exposed shaping the Israeli political landscape for years to come. The Shin Bet tried to stop him, but Avneri bested them at every turn, and he made them literally resort to making a state-funded pornography magazine. Then he entered politics, where he helped shape Israeli policy and give a face to the Israeli left. Then he became the first Israeli to meet Yasser Arafat and helped kickstart the Israel-Palestine peace process.
Oh, that accomplished nothing.
Finally, he became one of the most famous
That was a
and
waste.
Middle East peace activists. Now, that's one hell of a career. In a way, I think that much of his fame comes from the fact that he was deliberately inflammatory and contrarian, consistently crossing every single accepted political line. One of his books, he detailed his political strategy, which was basically just...
I actually realize I should probably be flying
Yet
the
despite
other
this,
way.
Avneri consistently managed to befriend almost all of his political enemies, Everyone agreed the guy was extremely charismatic, and if you watch some of his
Are
interviews,
you
I think
looking
you'll
for the
wind up
ship you
agreeing.
wanted to kill?
I mean, who else
No,
would
he's
like
long
to-
gone, but I just wanted to
President
get
on one day
deeper.
and Bibi
I was
Netanyahu
hoping
on
I could use it as a shortcut to
died
get
in
deeper
20.
into the rings,
He
but
asked for his body to be burned.
I guess he can't.
His ashes
Oh, fuck.
scattered in the Mediterranean Sea.
oh god, oh
He
god.
said that he had always liked to eat fish, and now he wanted to return the favor. Despite how controversial of a figure he was during his life, Avner is mourned by figures all across both the Israeli and Palestinian political spectrum. The new Palestinian president, Mahmoud Abbas, put out a statement eulogizing him, as did most Israeli political figures. These even include figures in the Israeli right wing, such as future Prime Minister Naftali Bennett and Gidon Sa'ar, who is currently serving as Israel's foreign minister. They said that despite disagreeing with Avner about almost everything, they deeply respected his contribution to the Israeli political system. I can't think of any other Israeli figure who left behind a legacy quite like this one. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching. I really hope you learned something new, and if you did and are interested in more deep dives, feel free to support me on my Patreon, since this video is guaranteed to be demonetized. Let me know what you thought in the comments, and share the video with people you think might find it interesting. For any
No, no, no.
questions,
Say your
video
piece.
ideas, death threats, or marriage requests, you can contact me at hasmonianhistorian@gmail.com. Anyway, thank you so much to all my top-level patrons, 23 Tovar, Max Von Dij, Howard Wetzman, Daniel Jonathan, A. Race Hachdorf, as well as all of my
Uh-oh.
other patrons, Dan Palamek, Arson T. Captain, Natalie Bates,
All right, geez, let me.
Dinzes, Ellie Skora, Lakiva Elkin, The Dink Judean, Ira, Alexi Takala, Javi Neven, Ol001, Brenton Jackson.
Okay,
Shimon
we don't need to listen to this. But yeah, that was Hasmodian Historian. That's an interesting channel. Subscribe to that guy. Next up, the Pink Pill.
Grooming is the insidious act of earning a person's trust through manipulation, fully
Oh, God.
intending to exploit
God.
them. If I told you people were doing this through memes, you'd probably call me crazy. But I promise, by the end of this video, your mind will have been changed tenfold. Pink pilling is a lesser known, more recent type of grooming that focuses on force femming, typically by introducing certain ideas through seemingly innocuous sources such as memes or YouTube videos. It's a phrase born from terminally online discussion that began to hold water as it became more common. These days you can find traces of it scattered across various viral memes, and this was no accident. Trans girls and pumpkins, skirts and thigh highs, and of course, boy
Absolutely
kisser. In the
insufferable.
hands of the wrong
No, you
person,
didn't like
these
it?
can be
I thought he
weaponized
was
into
fun.
something horrible.
Funny
Best
and
believe
informative.
They already have been.
Can't words?
Today I'll be telling you all about it. I'll also explain how it works, how to spot it, and cover a few communities at risk. Though for the sake of safety, I'll only cover known cases. Before we get started, quick disclaimer. This video isn't to spread anti-trans rhetoric. Seeing as I am literally part of the LGBTQ, generalizing them as a bunch of groomers would be really stupid. That said, this is meant to be informative and not some political commentary. So I'm
Starting
leaving
with
most
the
of my
subject
opinions out of
matter.
the discussion. And I'll probably sound like an enlightened centrist off Reddit. Wherever you, the viewer, fall on this funny compass, I don't really care right now. I just want you to learn something. All I ask is for you all to be normal, not kill each other in the comments, and definitely not to harass anyone afterwards. Hopefully this video will spread awareness, and, by the grace of God, invite a level-headed discussion. Alright, let's get into this mess.
I understand the frustration
This chapter
with people
covers a
constantly
bunch of
inserting
semi-related
unnecessary
things.
internet
Sorry if it
memes
seems all over
into
the
every
place, but I
conversation.
promise it will make sense in a few minutes.
He
Let's
says
start off with the
inserting dumb internet memes into everything.
2018.
That especially.
You couldn't scroll more than 5 posts on Instagram without seeing Belle
I thought it was funny.
rappers on your screen. Funnily enough, this period of time was crucial, because it showed people just how influential one could get by simply being attractive, wearing specific outfits, and having a Redditor catering personality. Up until this day, this remains an unpatched method of raising your follow count by the 100,000s. How does this relate to the topic at hand? Well, as it turns out,
Makes me
if you
think of
take those
Ayla.
same outfits and slap them on guys who look like girls,
Oh, God.
the appeal went nowhere. In fact, to some people, it was even more desirable. I know what you're thinking. Am I seriously implying e-girls created femboys? Definitely not, but what I am saying is e-girls helped popularize what's now widely known as the Amazon Basics fit, consisting of a skirt, thigh highs, fishnets, and oversized hoodie. If you were active online in the years surrounding 2020, you probably remember the absolutely insane number of memes about this very outfit circulating, especially memes thirsting over thigh highs. E-girls themselves did not give way to the big femboy craze around 2020. Instead, it was their audiences. Remember the term weeaboo? It's a derogatory phrase to make fun of someone LARPing as Japanese, since there was a lot of that going on in the 2010s. If you recall, weeb culture tends to have a lot of Gunnar-esque memes, such as the Ahegeo face hoodie. Here's a simple equation.
Ahegeo?
E-girls targeted normies. Weebs are normies. Weebs love memes. E-girls use memes to appeal to normies. It's a feedback loop, and in a way the two cultures, if you can call them that, influenced each other. Just like that Ahegeo meme I mentioned a second ago, e-girls started doing the face, and it garnered like 10 billion likes a post. It was a huge hit and proved the cultures could work together. Another popular piece of weeb-gooner culture were maid outfits, which e-girls picked up on. These outfits were popular for a few
gone.
reasons,
Okay, we're never finding that.
Anime and certain categories on certain websites. When you saw it on Instagram, it was usually somebody cosplaying an anime character. I'm sure people were completely normal about that and didn't make a metric fuck ton of memes about them. Obviously, these were intended as jokes, though the humor really did boil down to putting on the funny sex outfit in a lot of cases. And you just have to ask yourself, is it really a joke? It's undeniable that at some point it's been used to sway others into, well, putting on the maid dress. After all, it's just a joke. Wouldn't it be so funny if you followed through and actually did it? Seems harmless, till you think of the possible implications for 5 seconds.
Where have I seen maids
There's a sort
recently?
of follow-up to a lot of these memes.
Canadian healthcare?
I started this as a joke. I don't think it is one anymore. It's hard to call that a coincidence, because it isn't. I wonder if that applies to other jokes. Around this time, one of those happened to be at an all-time peak. Traps aren't gay. Throughout the later half of the 2010s, a huge number of people became obsessed with the idea of a trap. A guy who looks so convincingly like a girl, it's hard to believe they aren't one. Hence, a trap. Though the implication of the word trap turned the humor into ironic gay shitposting and coping. I'm sure you remember hearing stuff like, it's not gay if we keep our socks on. At the end of the day, the humor boiled down to gay sex and guys that look like girls being hot. Wasn't really something people took seriously at the time.
Oh, yeah.
Did. But we'll get to that in a moment. Something pushed through these e-girl or femboy memes was a fixation on a hyper-feminine type. No body hair, flawlessly clear skin, hourglass figure, and of course, all of that being showcased through the Redditor catering Amazon Basics fit. Eventually, femboys were lumped into this, though when they were a lot more niche at the time. So instead of using real photos of femboys, a lot of them just used e-girls and captioned them with, if you look like this and you're a guy, hit me up, please. It's a lot harder to write these off as jokes when the punchline is literally just thirsting over a photo of someone. More often than not, when referencing femboys, these thirsting memes would use artwork of anime characters like Astolfo instead of real photos. And Jesus Christ, did this get out of hand. 95% of the time you see one of these memes, it's either cropped NSFW or implying something sexual. This meme hasn't gone anywhere. You can still find it being posted all over the place. In the rare instance where it actually was a guy, well, to say photos of femboys wearing e-girl outfits generated attention would be like saying Minecraft sold a few copies. This audience of people would lose their fucking minds. And the numbers it generated, the influence, it started trickling down into age demographics that really shouldn't be looking at stuff like this. Characters like Astolfo becoming icons for the femboy community wouldn't be nearly as concerning if it wasn't for the biblical levels of NSFW in circulation and the fact most members of these communities are minors. It's time for an uncomfortable truth. The Amazon Basics fit as we know it was popularized heavily by models
insufficient
to draw your
distance.
attention to certain places. Use your imagination. The maid outfit was used for the exact same thing. On their own, these outfits are not sexual. Yet in the context that influenced this big wave of memes, they kind of were.
Where is
The
it?
audience definitely saw it that way. So seeing these same
Where is it, though?
go triple platinum mainstream and minor-dominated places is one of many reasons why people find femboy communities so repulsive these days. It's not rocket science to look at this meme trend and realize it's a bunch of hormonal teenagers and weebs shitposting. Occasionally, weeb humor breaches containment.
Oh, it's below me. Alright.
Such as traps aren't gay. Unfunniness aside, it wasn't really hurting anyone. Or was it? Behind the scenes, a storm was brewing. A small demographic was taking these memes a little too seriously. Worse is another demographic realized that. Predators with a fetish for this type of thing realized they could harness these memes to pull strings, manipulating certain groups into becoming feminine or fully transitioning. If that sounds crazy, what if I told you this was already happening before any of these memes went mainstream? In early 2018, rumors of a 4chan user named Reiko began spreading online. A user allegedly using the R9K board to grow a femboy blackmailing ring. R9K was kinda notorious for having a ton of super lonely femboys and the like on it. Using the board, a Discord server was created to lure in members. From here, it's claimed Reiko forced these users to transition by manipulating them into sharing cross-dressing photos, then blackmailing them into taking HRT lest these photos be sent to their family, since his group of friends would dox the members upon joining. Him, his friends, and surrounding parties were obsessed with femboys, and the idea of force femming in general. Certainly an extreme example, though I have to ask, does subtle manipulation with the same memes he used really sound so far-fetched by comparison? This also happened before the 2020 quarantine made everyone go fucking ballistic over femboys. All of these things, the outfits, influence, attention, niche humor, femboys, they overlapped into something terrible. Layers upon layers of sex jokes and mass social media attention created what is for all intents and purposes the big bang of pink pilling. Everyone wasn't just learning about femboys. Other people were starting to fall into the ideology themselves. Or maybe they were already there and decided objectifying themselves for internet clout was the way to go. To give a blanket statement before we move on to the next chapter, being transgender or even a femboy is not a fetish in itself, it's just personal expression. However, it can be a fetish, either for the individual or an outside party. It's undeniable that a ton of people definitely do fetishize them, hence chasers. A big chunk of our future problem can be attributed to these guys. They're kind of the root of all evil in this case. Another contribution to these memes being circulated, even if it was small, were individuals who were low-key dysphoric, and used them as an outlet. The internet around this time was a lot more centered around shitposting. It was also a lot edgier. Fond memories we may have, being yourself online was fucking impossible. Pretty much everyone was drowned in irony, and if you went against the grain, you were going to get grilled. That's just how it was, and honestly I kinda miss it. It was funny. Anyways, in certain cases these memes were being posted ironically, though it reflected the poster's true self a bit more than they were letting on. This subset of posters would go on to create their own communities, the same specific communities that pink pillars would make their #1 target. When the COVID-19 quarantine came, the Traps Aren't Gay crowd's humor began to evolve with other viral gooner-adjacent trends at the time. For example, the word bussy was definitely not in most people's vocabulary beforehand, but now you couldn't finish a conversation without hearing it. Throughout 2020, this humor would trickle into a mostly unaffiliated meme trend. And there's no real way around calling it what it is, the transgender stereotype memes of today. The Redditor Blahaj, Monster Energy, Ultra Kill, Bridget, Guilty Gear, Astolfo Pumpkin Estrogen memes we know and certainly do not love. It's an ever-growing bundle of stereotypes born from Redditors that continues to snowball, and rather unfortunately absorbs otherwise interesting people into what can only be described as the transgender version of a normie. The LGBTQ's version of a Funko Pop collector. Bad people? Not by any stretch of the word. It's more so a personality that lacks personality. Like a foundation without a house built on top. Although that's pretty much exactly what it is. Gender dysphoria and transitioning are pretty complicated things. It's easy to lose track of, say, your personal hobbies, fashion, interests, mannerisms. These memes were created for trans youth, typically by trans youth, to build a sense of belonging and community. A basic set of things to help embrace and affirm their identity until they could grow up and realize you don't need to reinvent your whole personality just to change genders. You can still like the same stuff, dude. I've heard countless stories about this very thing from trans people. Whenever I asked, the story was relatively consistent. They all adopted the Trans Normie Starter Pack because it was something to hold on to when they were trying to rediscover themselves. A study guide of sorts. They're all definitely still trans, but most of them cringe at the thought they used to identify with those memes. Either because it was try-hardy and fake, or because of the current reputation they have. Either way, these memes were meant to serve as the first stepping stone into transitioning for those who needed it. They say the road to hell is paved with good intentions, and such is the case in this scenario. Because the internet is the internet, these images were later reposted by concerningly old hobgoblins perusing through communities of minors. Except they made one small change. They added a tinge of that traps aren't gay e-girl obsession humor to it. Actually, they added a lot. Naturally, these memes also started going viral, ensuring the well was poisoned forever. These days, if you go out of your way to find images like I quite regrettably needed to do for this video, you'll notice the vast majority mention being thick, horny, or some other sexual remark. It's become borderline socially acceptable to both post these and make them as a minor in recent years, no matter what type of community it is. These bastardized stereotype or starter pack memes, whatever you want to call them, are littered everywhere. For example, the furry community is bursting at the seams with stuff like this. A notorious case of these stereotypes being used could be found in Otokonoko Pharmaceuticals. a project by a Brazilian trans woman to produce bathtub HRT and sell it to those who couldn't get a prescription. It was controversial to begin with, since anyone against HRT or transgenderism would be against it no matter what, and she was associated with Keffels, which was bound to land her some flack regardless. That being said, if certain people want HRT and it gets banned locally, they're going to look for it elsewhere. You can't really fault people for that. It's their choice anyways. What you can fault someone for is plastering the box with memes and lolicon artwork that indulge in the sexual stereotypes surrounding trans people, knowing minors are going to buy it. At one point, "Keep out of reach of parents" was printed in big red text. This was a horrible look that's still weaponized against trans people to this day, and customers themselves would point out how harmful the marketing was. Also, the quality was super questionable, such as finding hair in the vials, and overall it seemed like it was being made in an unsterile chemical processing plant by an inexperienced chemist. The bulk of these memes weren't focused on sexual topics, however that changed when the ever-growing traps aren't gay gooner crowd began mixing in their own humor. This led to minor populated spaces being plastered with weird fetishistic imagery in the process.
So was the radar anomaly just this guy?
But how does any of this groom
I
someone into
don't
becoming
get it.
feminine? Throughout this history lesson, I haven't really explained that, but now it's time to actually get into the title of the video. Where does pink pilling come into play? Grooming is a form of manipulation. In theory, anyone is susceptible. In most cases, it, and by extension pink pilling, thrive on vulnerable individuals rather than communities at large. That being said, the majority of pink pill victims are sourced through places like youth-focused LGBTQ subreddits and Discord servers, since the moderators seemingly don't care about child safety, or in extreme cases are trying to do it themselves en masse. When a predator reaches out, they tend to try and establish a connection as quickly as possible, then gradually shift the focus of the connection to boundary-pushing questions about sexual topics. The memes covered thus far, cornball and unfunny as they may be, serve as a shockingly effective way for predators to get their foot in the door. They're meant to be relatable to someone questioning their identity, although that's only phase 1 of the operation. Phase 2 is sending the sexualized versions, shifting the relationship from platonic to sexual. Through manipulation tactics like guilt tripping, love bombing, and isolation, the victim becomes complicit. After this point, there's no telling what sort of crimes happen. When it comes to victims who aren't questioning at all, the process remains mostly the same. Long-term manipulation through seemingly innocuous sources like memes and jokes. A really common way this is done is by the groomer pushing an ironically gay sense of humor onto the victim, and over time this might stop being a joke. I do need to state for the record that these memes are not magically going to groom someone. They're not like force femme cognitohazards if you look at them, but they can be used to manipulate others into thinking and acting certain ways, reinforcing things like girls act this way and wear these outfits, when in reality it's hand-selected pieces of the perpetrator's fetish catalog, inserted into the memes the victim's been using to affirm themselves. Pink pilling is related to another type of grooming known as EPI. It stands for Early Porn Introduction, and means a predator introduces sexual media to a victim early on in their life. Usually it's a method to emotionally control them easier, though other times the predator just gets a kick out of shattering a child's innocence. Really sickening shit. EPI plays a role in what we've discussed so far, since these memes tend to outright use cropped NSFW or stick to the relatable SFW images, but twisted just enough to push the narrative into sexual territory, then going from there. The end goal of a pink pillar is to get the victim to view sexual actions as validating to their identity. This creates a very strong codependency bond, since the victim begins relying on their groomer for constant emotional gratification.
It is just these bad
in some
apples
cases,
making
after
you believe in
numerous
false
victims are cultivated,
stereotypes.
offshoot groups are formed, like certain examples we'll get to soon. So that's how it works and how to identify it. But how do you spot someone else being groomed this way? The most glaring signs are sudden out-of-character actions from the victim. For example, their display name, avatar, speech mannerisms, and sense of humor change into the pre-established stereotypes. Or really,
it's clear that this guy has an agenda,
extra context,
but
this is why you see these memes occasionally referred to as
at least he's acknowledging that it even exists.
Since there's no punchline beyond it,
because most of them don't.
In some way. When it comes to your friends and family safety, it's better to trust your gut instincts. If you notice
most of them that I've encountered, you never know, you know.
Kind of unusual.
You always have to bear in mind that
in my last couple of videos,
everyone is in a filter bubble.
Specimens tell me that speaking about this stuff will actually cause more harm than good, since I'm teaching people how to groom others and get away with it, which is absolutely insane to say when one, what? You could say that about any type of activism in history and it would still sound just as stupid. 2, people have known about this stuff forever now. Why do you think platforms like Discord and Roblox get so much scrutiny? God forbid, one more video about the topic gets made. That'll really tip the fucking scale. Sorry for derailing. I wanted to address the local wildlife before
Okay,
moving
why
on to the
not
next
edit it
topic,
out of the script
targeted
then?
communities.
If you have to apologize for it.
There's a couple well-known public hotbeds for pink pilling, some readily obvious, other places incredibly surprising. Each one also varies in size. Some are used daily by thousands, others only have a few hundred or less members. On affected platforms, and let's be real, it's the internet, every platform is affected, the activity always tends to congregate in specific areas. Earlier I mentioned pink pill-oriented groomers tend to go after LGBTQ youth communities, though realistically any platform that harbors a large child audience with social features such as Roblox will inevitably attract predators. So what about those readily obvious ones? Allow me to introduce you to Reddit's egg culture. Eggs are a term for people who are trans but haven't yet realized or accepted the identity, and cracking or hatching this egg means the person comes out of it. God forbid a trans person realizes they're trans and wants to talk about it. That's not the point. It's the fact these communities are filled to the brim with overzealous adults borderline pushing minors into transitioning. And if you dare mention it, they just call you transphobic. Even when the people criticizing them have been trans for longer, but that's besides the point. If you actually go to the subreddit, it's mostly just people spamming low-effort memes of anime girls overlaid with text to be relatable. Yes,
Well, if the majority of the people in your so-called community
however, they usually end up getting
have that
or
opinion,
created by actual predators.
then that's
If you
what the
think
community
it's
is
wild, stay
about.
down. A registered sex offender was promoted
And
to
at a certain point, it's on you for identifying with it.
r/MTF, r/LGBT, and r/egg IRL. What's even worse is that the other mods were deleting and banning members of these communities for bringing this situation to light. The head mod knew who this person was, but apparently the need for mods was so high that that's all they had to work with. Sure. Egg IRL has been a known hotspot for
I mean,
years.
based to the
Good
guy for
intentions
trying to
aside,
call
this
attention
was
to
inevitable
it,
due to its premise,
it's just like,
and horrendous moderation. Yet it's not
certain
even
point you gotta wake up and smell the coffee.
Femboy communities. Femboy-focused subreddits suffered the same fate of being used as a potential victim catalog. Complaints of underage members receiving inappropriate messages from adults isn't uncommon at all. What makes these communities especially dangerous, in my opinion, is
a lot of people who are in communities like this,
discussion-oriented
it seems like they don't know, like they don't realize that not everyone is like this. They think it's just normal. They're like, oh yeah, like every community has, you know, a pedophile subculture. Yeah, of course, that's normal, right? And we're like, no, that's just you, buddy.
W sub clocking in at over 1.2 million monthly users. That is 6 times more popular than the second most active and supposedly safer work version, which only has 223,000 monthly users. And that one is filled to the brim with certainly risque pictures itself. It's worth mentioning that r/femboy cites itself as an 18+ sub in the rules, and redirects any minors to r/feminine boys, which is a strictly text-based community. So what am I getting at here? Do I think femboy communities are evil or something? No, if they're actually fucking moderated. Whether you agree or disagree with the idea of femboys, it's a topic of discussion that's not going anywhere anytime soon. The best outcome with that in mind would be to not have the most popular forums on a site as horrendous as Reddit. Let's just face the facts here. The femboy side of Reddit is predominantly overseen by inept lazy mods and actual confirmed predators. And a very large portion of the site quite openly fetishizes them.
What do you mean?
These subs themselves deserve to be
like, yeah, this is a real thing.
No. However, they get away with talking about stuff they definitely shouldn't be, since there's, once again, awful moderation. To the website's credit, there have been numerous subreddits taken down that were full of minors posting inappropriate photos, and the replies being flooded with creeps begging to DM them. Rare Reddit W. Another pretty infamous sub is r/196. It's basically a shitposting community for progressives, and looking at the community, its issues become apparent quite fast. It's no secret the subreddit is predominantly used by minors. Even the rules of the sub mention this. Despite this well-known fact, the sub is so infamous because it is flooded with borderline or even straight up NSFW. These days, it still happens, but it used to be so much worse. Because the sub is progressive, naturally a lot of members are queer, and mixing the type of things that get posted here with the fact most members are teenagers, saying they're targeted by groomers is an understatement. I mean, there is literally a flair for posts called horny post, where people pushing 30 are posting photos of themselves, while yet again the rules clearly state the sub is mostly used by teens. In case I need to spell it out for you, the process...
No, yeah, he's sincere about being, he said that he is, quote, a member of the LGBT community, so...
They tend to get targeted pretty heavily.
Now that may not be an exact quote, but you know what I mean.
LGBTQ subreddits are at risk, though. R/teenagers and the like are known to have predators lurking on...
I forget the exact wording, but
the unfortunate
that he used.
If it has to do with children, there are going to be creeps present. And it's usually up to the common person, and God-willing decent parental figures, to keep a close eye on everything. As dangerous as Reddit may be, it can't hold a candle up to Roblox. Described as the digital version of leaving your child alone in a shopping mall, Roblox is the poster child of poor child safety for all the wrong reasons. Horrendous moderation, the company literally trying to keep people from exposing bad actors, the social aspect, but also those offshoot groups I mentioned way earlier. Groomers and their victims don't exactly try to hide themselves here. In fact, they literally put easy to decipher coded messages in their bio, detailing exactly what they want and from who. These individuals then form groups on other social media, doing exactly what you think. You can find these players in the wild since they don't try to hide their tracks, although the really bad stuff happens on private servers. In my personal opinion, Roblox is the single most unsafe platform for minors right now. Predators are able to find their victims extremely easily. By the time the notoriously slow moderation bans the offender, they've already redirected the victim off platform, and literally nothing is stopping the banned offender from just making an alt account. These cases of grooming have led to the worst things imaginable, children being exploited in real life. Yet the company's priorities lie in getting people to stop talking about this, rather than dealing with the problem at hand.
What do you think the odds are, like Discord, Roblox, what do you think the odds are that the people who run these companies are themselves pedophiles?
Speaking of profits,
because like,
infamous part of Roblox these days,
you know,
marketplace. Items range from
like why do you rob banks? Because that's where the money is.
Browsing the catalog and searching keywords that shouldn't bring up any results on a kid's platform will yield pages upon pages of them. These include age regression.
It's like the other saying is, if it was illegal to fuck grown women, how long would you stay out of jail, you know? It's like, is it so hard to imagine that someone who is born with this kind of proclivity
full process of bastardizing a meme and
might like start a company to make it possible?
Twitter artist
like
Mousy Mice
conspiracy theory,
cat with
but
red eyes, a simple GIF to practice animation. There were a couple of these GIFs, and the character was simply referred to as the silly cat. Fast forwarding to January 2023, it turned into a sort of I know what you are meme. Okay, nothing out of the ordinary there. Throughout 2023, copious amounts of this meme were being made and spammed across really any LGBTQ forum online. Alright, it's starting to get annoying and honestly kind of weird. Late 2023, Boy Kisser begins earning its modern day infamy.
You notice how he
Boy Kisser, Kitty X,
keeps feeling the need to like, well, but I'm not one of those. I'm not like but I'm not.
Most infamous was their Discord
I disapprove of this. I disapprove of this.
General chat. Aside
you notice that?
VR nightmare, you had tons
it's
of
like, bro, you can just not identify with it.
Memes were frequently posted by some rather unsavory or suspicious characters.
Have you considered simply not being a progressive?
Something was up with them. Throughout 2024, the behavior went absolutely nowhere. Reddit communities dedicated to the weird side of Boy Kisser cropped up. A massive minor-dominated subreddit still exists to this day. Other subreddits like r/littleboykisser and I wish I was making that up thankfully got banned, although numerous individuals would take up the persona to act just as obnoxious and sickening as their predecessors. In the present day, nothing has changed. On March 10th, 2026, so like a month ago at the time of me uploading this, a Twitter user named BoykisserCutie creates a Discord server somehow even worse than the original. Members weren't even trying to hide the purpose of the server. Allegedly, it was so bad that CSEM was being posted in the general chat. Believe me when I say the poor reputation is well deserved. It shows how an innocent and totally unrelated meme can be corrupted, weaponized, and used for the most nefarious reasons imaginable, all while being disguised as a harmless joke. The rabbit hole goes super deep, and I may cover it in the future since there's a lot of the story that gets left out. And I am not lying when I say I could go on and on about these situations. These are not cherry-picked examples. Tragically, fans of Boy Kisser often fail to realize why people find it so repulsive, choosing to think it's purely for homophobic and anti-furry reasons, then plugging their ears whenever other talking points are brought up. I'm gonna come back to this in a second. Last thing I'll say on Boy Kisser for now is, one of the saddest parts of this story is what happened to Mousy Mice. Not only were they harassed incessantly and blamed for what happened—
oh no, that poor person. Yeah, that would suck. Holy shit.
To this day, they're forced to keep their socials isolated to avoid catching strays. Across this video, nearly everything, no matter how scattered across the internet they may be, have one thing in common. Motherfucking Discord. Here's a quick question. When was the last time you saw a call-out thread exposing someone that didn't feature Discord screenshots? It's just a fact. Discord is the go-to app for all types of debauchery, especially grooming. Victims are either redirected to it after being found on other apps, or groomers simply find the victim on Discord in the first place. There are tons of server directories that allow people to advertise their groups publicly, and even tag them with things like femboy or NSFW, so it's not exactly a challenge for predators to find them. Inside these servers are usually minors, sometimes lying about their ages, and adults who either don't realize or don't care. It's a huge problem that's well.
Yeah, I'm glad when I was, just abandoned, left alone on the internet, I found like InVision Pro boards and PHP BB sites for video games. Not, I wasn't around when Discord was around.
Thousands of private servers out there.
I would probably be quite a bit more fucked up
use Discord to archive illegal material
nowadays.
Across the web, openly sharing content that can in real time. Easily some of the most disturbing groups of people on the internet, full stop. The rabbit hole goes really, really deep, and if you somehow figure out how to find it, I highly advise you to stay as far away from it as possible. Okay, I've been yammering on for a little while now, so let's wrap this up with some of my personal thoughts. Something that really bothers me about this issue is how hard it is to bring up without some moron instantly shutting you down by calling you a bigot, even if you're literally LGBTQ yourself. Or alternatively, they go on a schizophrenic hate speech rant about trans people. It's inevitable that any discussion about this will turn into a massive incoherent argument, jam-packed with every logical fallacy under the sun. The most frustrating part is this problem literally transcends politics. It happens all over the political compass. The amount of Black Sun Boy Kisser edits I saw when editing this video, my god. So many people are so politic-brained that instead of trying to fix the problem sitting right in front of them, they instead weaponize it against the other side to own the libs or own the conservatives, when it's an issue in general. Obviously, I have my own opinion.
I mean, no, it's your team's issue.
Genuinely, who gives a fuck? It's annoying when supposedly informative videos are just opinionated rants of someone's personal beliefs. And instead of making any points, it's just throwing jabs at
the right can't say, oh, well, climate change is, a bipartisan issue. It's not associated with us. Well, yeah, it is.
This is something I wish people would talk about more, although for
you can't just be like, oh, well, both sides. It's like, no. No, it's your side. It's your side doing this. Like, both sides do stupid shit, but they do different stupid shit. But yeah, so that video makes me think of the concept of both standalone complexes and fuck off.
Everything is
shut up. Uber. Oh, that's Doxy. Did that show up on screen?
So your country has imported millions.
There's some whiplash for you, but yeah, standalone complexes and egregores. So note that people will spread those meme images. That's interesting how the game's performance gets way better when the video's not playing. Note that people will spread those meme images just in public, not because that particular person expects himself to derive any value from it, but he knows that he's contributing to this ambient groomery atmosphere. Another way you can think of it, so that is the standalone complex concept, where it's not like there's a Discord server where all the pedos are getting together and saying, yes, today we will spread this meme to try and convince young people to cut their dicks off because it turns us on. It's just they know what team they're on, and they act in the interests of their team. It's a standalone complex. I suppose Marxists could even call it class consciousness. The other concept is that of the egregore, where you can instead model this as there is an entity, a distributed entity, that lives in these people's brains, a sort of not conscious but reactive meme that drives these people, it turns these individuals into its tentacles to try and spread the meme. So meme, the word meme comes from, what's that guy's name? The what did he mean by this guy? I saw a homeless guy with a sign that said, not need a job or need food, but need a fat bitch. What did he mean by this? What was that guy's name? The Selfish Gene? He was a really prominent, like, annoying internet atheist, like one of the OGs of the annoying internet atheists. I can't remember names, I have brain damage, but he coined let's see, what was it the Selfish Gene?
I do not think PDFs can meme.
Well, clearly they can, because we just saw a video of them doing it. Like, all those images that he showed on the video, like those, his implication, and I agree, is that those were created by pedophiles who have a thing for, both because they have a thing for forced feminization, and also because it's a technique for separating young people from their families to make them easier to groom, which is also why the left likes it. What was I saying? Right. The concept of the meme, much like a living creature, ideas, thoughts, concepts can spread. You know, I say, like, I give you this concept of an egregore, and now the concept of an egregore lives in your head too. So the concept of an egregore is itself a meme. The theory of an egregore is that there are some memes that are not quite, some people think they may be actually conscious. I'm not sure. I think they're borrowing human consciousness, but there are ideas that drive you to spread the idea, right? I mean, all religions, well, not all, but most religions, like Christianity, a core part of Christianity is trying to get other people to be Christian. So you can model that, you can think of that as the Christian meme is inducing the host to spread it, just as toxoplasmosis does. Toxoplasmosis gondii is a parasite that, I'm sure everybody knows this, it's a parasite that lives in cats and rats. So the cat shits it out, a rat eats something that touched the shit, the toxoplasmosis gets into the rat, and the toxoplasmosis goes into the rat's brain and erases its fear of cats, so that it gets eaten by a cat, so that the toxoplasma can grow inside the cat's belly, get shit out again, get into another rat, the cycle continues. Or rabies. The reason rabies gives you that rage is because it's transmitted through bites, through saliva.
A meme that changes your behavior in a significant way, perpetuating itself.
Exactly. Well, an egregore, the concept of an egregore is you are modeling the meme as a distributed intelligent entity. So, like, when you talk to a leftist, you can see, like, you're talking to this relatively normal person, and then you say one of the trigger words, and suddenly it's like something took this person over. Like, that's the egregore. This thing is living inside their head, and when it detects a threat to itself, it takes over the body and starts controlling their actions. Again, this, the saying is, all models are wrong, some models are useful. I don't think there is literally, like, a demon taking control of people's bodies. But then again, like, that is what's happening, right? The idea lives in your head and it controls your behavior. So maybe I do believe that. I don't know. Like, I don't think anything supernatural is happening. I just think fucked up things it's a fucked up, perfectly natural thing. But yeah, so the idea is, the trans egregore is inducing its host to post these memes.
It is the natural in-group defense instinct being hijacked.
That's an excellent way to put it.
You protect what you are part of.
Yeah, that's an excellent way to think of it. Yeah, I'll have to store that. But yeah. Now. So what the fuck do we do about it? Eventually, we are going to have to invent this concept of mimetic public health. And also mimetic warfare, which is like, I mean, that's basically what 5th generation warfare is mimetic warfare. I mean, it's all battle spaces, but also the mimetic battle space. But yeah, eventually we are going to have to spread these concepts of mimetic hygiene and mimetic defense, and possibly even create some equivalent of the CDC for memes.
It is kind of too late for that.
I mean, no, it's an ongoing problem that humanity has coexisted with memes since the invention of language. You know, Christianity is a 2,000-year-old egregore. Judaism is a 8,000-year-old or more year-old egregore.
Humanity gets ground up into paste daily.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Horrible shit happens and history continues. That is the story of humanity. What was I trying to say? But yeah, so when you create this mimetic defense, mimetic public health, that's just censorship. But we need mimetic defense. But how do you... you want good, advantageous memes to enter your memosphere, right? You want them to enter your brain. But you want to keep out the bad ones, so how the hell do you do that? I don't know. I guess it has to be hygiene.
You might lose a limb trying to pull people out of the grinder.
Yeah. But, I don't know, I don't value my life. So, yeah. If I gotta, if I can't ride Kermit's sewer slide, if I'm not willing to do that, well, it's not that I'm not willing, if I would like to exhaust all other options before I take that one, one potential option is trying to pull people out of the grinder.
Feeling lucky.
Yeah. But, yeah, so how do you defend yourself without blinding yourself? Because also, well, I mean, information about the world, COVID is a dangerous disease that is going to spread to America back when it was just in China, that's a meme. But it's a meme that you really want to be exposed to, because then you can take action to prepare or make investments in the stock market or whatever. But how do you keep your exposure to the memes with big upside while protecting your children from getting standalone complex egregore groomed? I don't know. It's something we're going to have to figure out. The best answer I can think of, and the best answer that we can apply to an individual and not need state power to implement, is mimetic hygiene. That's the real reason that you shouldn't consume porn, is because it's the mimetic equivalent of chugging sewage. There's a lot of really fucked up ideas that are transmitted through pornography. Maybe someday I'll make it, probably maybe video after this one or video after next, I might make a video talking about it. I don't really feel up to bringing it up on stream, actually. I was about to start going into examples, but I don't want to.
The kids that get abused are mostly vulnerable.
Yeah, but like, I don't know. Like, that's a testable hypothesis. Like, is it mostly like abandoned kids who've been abandoned to the computer that get groomed? Or is it like a healthy family might still get their kid? Because, no, I mean, this does happen. Like, a normal family, they let their kid play Roblox, and then they meet one of those people the video was talking about.
Can be mostly avoided by parents.
Can it, though? Because you if you say that if you just ban your kid from accessing Discord, that isolates your kid, and that's going to fuck him up for life. That's how you end up with me.
Miss Stein, it can never be totally safe in general.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always a matter of probability, but how do you trade off the probability of your kid getting groomed against all the other factors in his life? Because if you say, hey, you can't have a phone, you can't have Discord, you can't go on Roblox, in modern childhood, unless you fucking go to extreme effort to replace that with real world community, you're fucking up that kid's life. You're going to isolate him, because for all normies, that is where kids interact, is on fucking Discord and Roblox and shit, and through their phones.
A lot of people warn their kids about this sort of thing.
A lot of them do, but I bet a lot of them don't know. I should talk to like the parents in my like church groups and my neighbors and ask them like, hey, you know about the Roblox thing, right? That's something I have to do for the video. Is just go out in the world and do a survey of, okay, how much do people actually know about this? I hope I'm making sense. I'm extremely burnt out and worn out and fucked up. That's why I'm doing a video stream. But, yeah. The best answer I can come up with is this concept of mimetic hygiene, where it's like, don't go on Discord if you can help it. If you got to go on Discord, make sure you go on like a specific whitelist of Discord rooms, of Discord servers where you know they have good moderation. Don't watch pornography. For the love of God, do not get TikTok or Instagram Reels.
Yeah, when you are in a super well-functioning society, you may ironically become vulnerable. Just don't expect predation.
Exactly, yeah. Like, the Midwestern farmers that I go to church with, they barely know what the internet is. Like, I had to help the leader of the church group figure out how to use Spotify. Like, they don't know about this stuff, so how are they going to protect their kids from it? I don't know. But yeah, mimetic hygiene. Just, yeah, I explained it. You just gotta, just like you can prevent illness by just not touching gross things, just don't go to gross places, don't talk to gross people. That's kind of the best you can do. Anyway, remigration, will it happen?
Millions and millions of world builders. And now, after seeing how amazing and great this all has been working out, you ask yourself if it is possible to reverse this beautiful cultural gift. And if it is possible, will it actually happen? The process of reversing mass migration is called remigration. To understand the different approaches to remigration, let's look at migration first. Or, to be more precise, at the 3 different approaches to handle the challenges of multiculturalism. The Eastern European approach, the Western approach, and approach countries like the Emirates and Russia are taking. Other countries not in this list can still somehow be fitted into one of these categories. The Eastern European approach, which countries like Poland...
Everyone on the internet is gross until proven innocent.
Yeah, maybe. But how are you gonna make friends then, you know? I don't know.
Belarus and Hungary took is the easiest to explain. You just don't let anyone in and you are done. The Western approach is to let everybody in. And when conflicts arise, which is not surprising because humans are inherently tribalistic by nature, they start trying to dismantle this tribalism through the means of cultural guilt. But for whatever reason, this process is only applied to the native indigenous population. The migrants, on the other hand, are still allowed to be proud of their ancestry and heritage, fly their own flag, and maintain their very strict traditional family structures. When the migrants complain about racism, the native population feels so guilty that they start abolishing century-old cultural practices. They start renaming historic streets and then rapidly ramp up so-called hate speech laws because otherwise they will not be able to maintain their cultural guilt. And this is the only way to make the Western approach to mass migration work. On the other side of the spectrum, you have countries like the Emirates or Russia, where the natives have absolutely zero guilt towards immigrants. They also have massive amounts of immigration, but none of the problems which the West has. If you are surprised about Russia having mass migration, they mostly come from former Soviet countries, especially the Central Asian ones. So
I didn't know about that.
There and start calling everybody a racist and demand that they start moderating their own language and how they should change their own culture just to protect your feelings, they will look at you like you're retarded because you are. Nobody forces you to move to Russia. Nobody forces you to move to Dubai. Imagine a bunch of gays move to Dubai and demand homosexual marriage. They will be told to go back to Canada. So is the solution for the West to just become like Dubai or Russia and give up their idea of remigration completely? No, because this approach has one massive flaw and is inferior to the solution
thanks for the
which
$5 grand, bro.
For example, has chosen. The massive caveat here is that while their approach may preserve the culture of the natives, you still have to mitigate the fallout of mass migration through really strict laws and very harsh prison sentences.
Russians are being totally replaced.
Really? Oh, I didn't know about that. Maybe tell me more about it after the video.
Well, let's explain.
This one's only like 10 minutes long, so we can talk after it.
The alternative, especially to my American viewers who believe that more guns and more death penalties are the only way to reduce crime. Let's imagine you walk into a neighborhood which is 100% completely Amish, or maybe 100% Orthodox Jewish. Do you really think somebody over there will stab you with a knife and steal your smartphone? Do you really believe that this is the neighborhood where people worry about locking their houses? No, because it works. It is a tightly knit, homogeneous, high-trust community. Most of Europe used to be like this and it was amazing. And all of that while having the mildest prison sentences ever. This is the desired outcome of remigration, at least in theory. Unfortunately, remigration is no longer possible in every country. For the United States, in my view, it is already way too late. It is not just that they went from 90% of people having exclusively European ancestry to less than 60, but they were never an ethnically coherent and homogeneous population in the first place. For them, having American citizenship means that you are a full-blown American. This is unique and different from almost all other countries. If I move to China, get a Chinese citizenship, spend my entire life there, I will still never be Chinese. The only thing Americans can try to do right now is to send all illegals back home and hope that this will somehow reduce the strain on the taxpayer. But looking at the tiny and minuscule amounts of people which Trump has deported, you can forget it. This entire ICE circus which Trump is orchestrating right now is maybe enough to look like a tough guy on Fox News, but it is light years away from actually improving anything. Western Europe is in a different situation right now and still has a chance to preserve their ethno-cultural continuity. Before we dig into which countries are screwed and which are not, are there actually any countries where the natives went from being a minority back to becoming a dominant majority again? Yes, and for that let's look at the Soviet Union. The Soviets used to mass deport every single ethnicity which they didn't like, either to Siberia or to Kazakhstan. So they took Ukrainians from Ukraine, Polish from Poland, and even some Koreans from Korea, and many more. They deported so many ethnicities into Kazakhstan that roughly 70% of the entire country was made up exclusively out of foreigners. This was still the case up until just a few decades ago. When the Soviet Union collapsed, all the Ukrainians, Polish, Germans and so on decided to remigrate back to their original home countries. It took them a decade or maybe two, but now Kazakhstan has only 30% of foreigners left. Most of them are ethnic Russians in the north, and in theory, with enough political willpower, you could reduce this down to 15 or even 5%. So it is possible. But what has to change in the West to build up enough political willpower? Public opinion always falls right into the middle of both extremes.
Not
on one
all by a
extreme,
long
it is
shot.
completely acceptable to put cars on fire and to beat up people who they perceive to be Nazis. On the other side, you have people who just want to reverse the last few decades of mass immigration. And if this is the most extreme view on the right, which is still socially acceptable, I don't see how the moderates in the middle will ever get there. The only thing which moves the middle slightly further to the right, even if just by a very tiny amount, is the fact that we have Twitter. But the problem with that is that the European right is relying way too much on Elon Musk, so they have to take one of these three ways to fix it. They either have to get rid of so-called hate speech laws and then wait 5 to
Who does
10
he
years
think
for
is starting
public
those
discourse
fires?
to get where they want it to be. Or second, a different country has to be the first to implement remigration successfully. This will show the rest of the world that it is not only possible, but it will showcase the positive impact, for example, on the housing markets and on crime rates. After that, more countries will feel empowered to do the same. Or the last option, they just wait until the
Imperial
situation
Russia
becomes
was
so
doing the same
bad that
stuff,
people
of
have
course.
nothing to lose and finally stop caring about so-called hate speech laws. The problem with the last
Yeah, I
approach is
imagine.
that by the time they get there, it will likely be too late. There is this meme in the far right going around that if the moderate solution will fail, society will just escalate to a more extreme approach. And while I agree that remigration is the moderate solution, the truth is if that one fails too, there will be no extreme alternative. There will be no second chance. You just become a third world country and that's it. The only thing natives can try to do after this has happened is to self-segregate into enclaves where they are actually safe and can protect their own culture and identity. And if you have to self-segregate in your own country,
Well, the most
congratulations,
important policy
you
was
have
importing
achieved
ethnic
diversity.
Russians in.
So let's look at
Yeah.
different approaches
Yeah,
to
I know about
remigration.
that.
You have the post-Soviet approach, which
Where
I
they,
described earlier, where the living standards in the host country collapses very rapidly, while at the same time their original home country saw a significant improvement in terms of living standards. In that situation, people will decide to remigrate back purely by their own choice. But waiting until Europe collapses could take a decade or maybe even two. And in the meantime, nobody is rebuilding the countries from which all of these migrants are originally from. So this approach is not feasible. Then you have the authoritarian approach, where you just take all the people you don't like, put them into a train and send them home. In practice, this solution is completely infeasible thanks to decades and decades worth of European bureaucracy. Getting rid of all of these complicated laws within a reasonable time frame is only possible if you manage to seize absolute power in one single move. And if you fail, it will backfire so badly it literally throws the entire continent into a civil war. This is not the future you want to live in. Just consider how much pushback Trump has received after he deported just a very small amount of people. Now imagine how much worse it will be in Western Europe, where the extreme left is so much more dominant. That's why this approach is not feasible either. The last and most realistic approach to remigration is the one popularized by Martin Sellner, where the idea is to apply remigration pressure in a way that is completely compliant with all the European laws and constitutions. His plan contains 3 different steps: close the borders, send back all illegals, and apply pressure on naturalized but non-assimilated citizens. The thing is, with the extreme slow pace at which the far right is growing right now, by the time they actually get into parliament, all the migrants will not only have already crossed the borders, but also all of them will be naturalized citizens. This is why only the last point is practical in my opinion. So how is he going to do this in a way which is legal and compliant? Because in these
Someone might
jurisdictions
have as
it is
well done
impossible
something
to
with all
treat
the
immigrants
pushback.
differently from natives. So if you introduce such incentives, they have to apply to everybody. So if you ban stuff like halal meat, hijabs and circumcisions, you have to do this for all citizens, no matter whether they are immigrants or natives. And then the next phase of step 3 is just to wait until all the people you don't like will just go back to their home countries. Good luck with that. Of course, if this plan ever gets implemented, there will be more or less aggressive variants. This depends highly on the country which is implementing implementing these measures. It could be possible that some countries will find completely legal ways to denaturalize people in masses. But I only believe it when I see it. Because if you actually get to the point where you can send people back home, you will see massive protests all over the continent. And if you look at how Trump pulled out of Minnesota after just a tiny little bit of pushback, you can imagine how much worse it will be in most European countries. So which country will be the first one to implement remigration? Everybody is talking about Restore Britain in the UK right now. But if you look at Austria, their local right-wing counterpart is at almost 40%. So Austria will likely be the turning point where the right could finally win the absolute majority for the very first time and become a leading example. But for other countries, I'm not sure they will make it at all. In my view, the most likely outcome is that the traditional Europe, which we used to have 2 decades ago, will only continue to exist in a small cluster of countries. And that will be Austria, Hungary, Slovakia, the Czech Republic and probably Poland. We have to wait and see until one country goes first and then hopefully everybody else follows. Until then, the job is just to get elected, but also to prevent the right from falling apart over stupid internal arguments. Because right now, most right-wing parties are internally divided into 2 competing groups and they hate each other. And this could be one of the reasons why you are completely screwed and voting far-right may not even save you.
Alright, so in response to that video, for one, I think he's, speaking of mimetic hygiene, he's falling for a lot of the anti-Trump black pillar memes where, well, he's deported like 5 people. Well, we have more deportations like every year than we have had in the entire history of the country. Now, that's because we have 100,000, not 100, probably 100 times the amount of illegal immigrants that we've ever had in the country. So yeah, you know, it's shooting fish in a barrel. It's not that impressive, but he's doing it. And I think as my generation come to power, like the Zoomers are gonna, well, I don't know. It's gonna get weird is what it's gonna do. But also, the more important mistake he made is the United States, when you become a naturalized citizen, you take an oath to the Constitution. Like, you take an oath to say, hey, I am going to uphold the principles of this country, you know, that this country was founded on, that I'm becoming a citizen of. And if the state makes the determination that you lied when you made that oath, your naturalization is invalid and your citizenship is revoked. The citizenship is not a one-way door, or naturalization is not a one-way door. You can be denaturalized. And I'm sure the Trump administration and, you know, cross our fingers, the Vance administration are going to figure out how to denaturalize en masse. Furthermore, the left's response to that is mostly kind of just to cry about it. There's not a lot they can do. Like, the most effective thing they've been doing is having judges issue injunctions to block the things that Trump is doing. But it's starting to be that those judges are getting voted out. They're getting removed from their positions, and their injunctions are getting overridden.
How often has that happened?
Well, it doesn't happen very often yet, but I think we are going to find ways to do it. I mean, remember, the fucking Communist Control Act is still on the books. It's not enforced, but I wish I could remember the details, but I remember seeing an article of Trump finding an old law that's still on the books and being like, hey, we can just start enforcing this and then do what we want. But, yeah, so denaturalization is possible. It doesn't happen a lot yet, but like a lot of these left-wing, you know, the Red-Green Alliance people, they'll just come out and say, hey, yeah, I immigrated to this country because I want to fuck it up. And if you do that, you can get denaturalized by the letter of the law. Now, that's the letter of the law, that's not how it's interpreted, but the way the law is interpreted can change. Now what, let's see, I think I've made my point there. What were you saying about, all the stuff you were saying? See, the natives are not tribal. Yeah, I mean, I think as people become more aware, and this is not, I don't think this is really a good thing, but as people become more aware of the amount of discrimination that is being enforced against white Americans, European Americans, let's not accept the enemy's frame. Let's say heritage Americans. There we go. The amount of discrimination against heritage Americans, people are going to start treating heritage American, because people don't want, like, we don't want to exclude the blacks. We don't want to exclude people who immigrated, who genuinely do believe in the principles of the country. So I think there is a real chance that this concept of heritage Americans could become relevant, and Americans as an ethnos, without regard to actual biological race, not necessarily not entirely without regard, but also not entirely, not a one-to-one connection between your ethnos and your biological race. We can say, hey, FBAs, foundational black Americans, the descendants of slaves, those are heritage Americans too. They're a different kind, but they are heritage Americans, as distinct from the people who are members of these massive immigration waves. What was I saying? Yeah, so as they become a category, and remember, our civil rights laws are written to be race blind. It is illegal to discriminate against white people. It is illegal to discriminate against straights. That's not enforced, but the way laws are interpreted can change. And I know Trump is modifying the EEOC, the Equal Opportunity Employment Commission, I think. EEOC, equal, I don't know what the acronym stands for, but they're the people who enforce those civil rights laws about non-discrimination. He is putting in, is someone, oh, I'm under attack. Okay. You're under attack, retard.
That's cool. But that would still be a minuscule amount of people. It is a matter of discipline. Mostly.
I'm in danger. All right, read his line, machine. No, it's not going to? Okay.
I am in danger.
Oh god. Okay, no, I need to deal with this. Holy shit. Oh god, what the fuck? What are you? Oh no, he made me into popcorn. God damn it. Well, shit. Oh, wait. No, the popcorning is still on. Okay, I am probably going to die. You know what? If you're coming with me, motherfucker. Come and get it. Oh god, that's a mass driver. Yeah, how do you like it? Oh wait, I might win this. Or win as in kill the other guy. Yeah, start spinning, asshole. Yeah, get fucked. You thought you could jump me? Okay, what was I saying? Can I follow that guy? I want to see him die. I shot a man in Ganymede just to watch him die. I'm not Ganymede, I'm in Saturn. I'm in the rings of Saturn. Ganymede is where the station is. No, don't recover. No. I guess I gotta keep toasting him. What was I saying? Yeah, no, I think that mass remigration, mass denaturalization, I think it's possible. I don't think it's inevitable, I think it is possible. But we'll have to see. But, yeah, and our civil rights laws are written that no discrimination is allowed. This, yeah. Let's see. Ah, fuck. Okay, well, I'm getting search and recovered. Come on, I want to see that guy die. Come on, come on. No! Anyway. Yeah, what were you saying about Imperial Russia and all that stuff?
You are both getting recovered.
I guess. No, he's flying away. God damn it. Well, I hope I made him rack up a big bill. He probably made me rack up a big bill. God damn it.
Miss Stein, I meant mostly that they had racial policies.
Missed on. Yeah, that was not a profitable run. Okay, what's the damage? The damage is pretty damn bad. Shit. I was hoping I could save up for that, salvage information network, but no, we just gotta replace my entire ship. God damn it. But yeah, I know there was, like, in Ukraine, they would send all the young Ukrainians to fight, and then they would ship in ethnic Russians to replace them.
And I thought Mr. Roan was bad.
Mr. Zerone. Yeah. I gotta fix this fucking thing. I'll upgrade it to an actual paid model. I'll use, like, Haiku. Because right now it's using New Research Hermes 4. Which, I don't know, freaking Hermes, it's pretty... I mean, it does a decent job, but it keeps making those dumb mistakes. Maybe I just need to tune the prompt more. I need to create an eval dataset. In fact, I should be recording the stuff that it does so that I can point at the stuff that's wrong. Always more work. Let's hear. Are we done processing that video? Because there's more. Why are white people like that? By Basic Logic. Speaking of white people...
Football, white people will engage in serious tribalism, even kill each other, to defend the honor of some multi-million-dollar club filled with foreign players. But when it comes to defending our families and heritage, suddenly our priority is to be as inoffensive as possible. In 1950, whites made up 35% of the world population. Now, they make up as little as 8%. Birth rates collapsed seemingly on purpose,
They are bringing
and in
replacement
response,
population
our
into the
government has
parts of the country they control.
Like, actively, currently? Who are they bringing in?
begun a campaign of mass immigration, fundamentally changing the fabric of our societies. Our former colonies fell, often due to intentional decolonization efforts. Places like South Africa and Zimbabwe, which used to be home to millions of whites, are now increasingly inhospitable and outright hostile to white people, leading to a global diaspora.
Yeah. Central and East Asians mostly.
Huh. Do you know why?
East Asian groups from within Russia.
Interesting, like, I don't know, like Kyrgyzstanis, Mongolians, that sort of thing, yeah. Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan.
For work, of course.
Just to drive labor costs down. Yeah.
That is what you do with people.
Yeah, it's really sad to see these people, like that viral video, those roofers at I think it was a Charlie Kirk turning point event where they're like, well, yeah, I don't want my country stolen from my children, but I need these Mexican illegal workers. Oh, you were talking about occupied Ukraine, yeah.
I was talking about occupied Ukraine.
But yeah, they had these people being like, I need these illegal workers. I can't afford to pay an American to do this work. Well, it's like, buddy, if we didn't have a fucked up labor market from the shit that you're doing, your kids you wouldn't need to be ultra rich to send your kids to a decent school if we didn't have mass immigration driving the cost of homes up, But no one wants to make the small temporary sacrifice to save the country. I don't know, man. Oh, my ship actually screamed as it saw that rock. That's disturbing.
And the rest of the world is following that example. Our own societies discriminate against their own people, especially white men, through DEI in hiring, media, and education, disenfranchising the youth. In many countries, they have to go abroad to find work, while being expected to pay suffocating taxes for the benefit of foreigners. And all of this with minimal backlash.
Oh shit.
So why do whites not only allow, but incentivize this? All societal action, the kind that keeps civilization going, is driven by at least one of three desires: the pursuit of wealth, the pursuit of security, and the pursuit of moral goodness or divine recognition. In the modern day, most white people take security for granted. They've been comfortable for too long, and as a result, don't think about the sacrifices and hard decisions needed to keep a society safe. Perhaps the greatest example of this is white female advocacy groups, which drone on about how dangerous life is for women, but then support the importation of people from cultures known for sexual violence en masse. And when the obvious happens, they campaign to keep these criminals in the country. So perhaps the pursuit of wealth is more relevant. Definitely among the elite and the boomer generation. They want more mass immigration to keep up a supply of cheap foreign labor, increase housing prices, and fund social security. They want women to be disincentivized from family formation to keep them in the workforce, further cheapening labor. But this logic breaks with the average white person. They only stand to lose. At most, we can argue that they believe the people they are importing will want the same welfare programs that they want and vote accordingly. Some do think this way, but the more thoughtful ones know that no amount of welfare can compensate for having to distribute the same wealth among more people, and will further recognize that the people they are importing have free will and in-group loyalty. They will not always vote in the way you want, and will often vote along ethnic lines, contrary to your interests. So that leaves us with the pursuit of moral goodness / divine recognition, which sounds ironic given how godless our societies have become. But for nearly 2 millennia, white societies emerged and developed under the Christian faith, a religion that is guilt-based, meaning it pushes individuals to focus on keeping true to a universal divine moral standard, rather than a societal shame-based standard. Just because we've secularized doesn't mean the 2 millennia old foundation of our culture evaporated overnight. The structure remains. In Christianity, Christ's sacrifice and forgiveness is the source of absolution from the guilt we store up as we sin, and Satan represents the temptation to evil, which we must avoid. But how about today? Modernity's founding mythology is World War II, and that is the story from which we build up our worldview, and in that story, Hitler is Satan. We must avoid being like Hitler in every way. If Hitler was nationalistic, we must be internationalists. If Hitler liked his own people, we must despise our people. This causes issues because Hitler was a historical person, not a metaphysical force. People are nuanced. Not literally everything Hitler ever did since birth was pure evil. Trying to define goodness around completely negating one historical figure leads to absurdities, like denying the reality of ethnicity out of a fear of being called racist. But even more problematically, secular whites can't find a suitable replacement for Christ. Without Christ, built-up guilt has no true source for absolution. This makes our society an anxiety-based culture. We're too afraid to take action because if we make a moral mistake, we'll be psychologically paying for it forever. Bad actors have discovered this. All someone has to do to exploit a white society is to guilt-trip them. Accuse them of historical wrongdoings, even if their own people did 10 times worse, and reap the rewards of having perpetual penitence. Want to exploit their societies and take advantage of their high-trust culture? Go ahead. They'll be too scared to demand justice from you. All modern white societies were built upon Christian roots and were members of Christendom. But there is no Christendom outside of Christ. Our apostasy, and our softened lukewarm version of Christianity, is why we can't stand up for ourselves, because we have no foundations upon which to stand.
This is the story of two...
It still works on Christians, though.
Yeah, it works on Christians who aren't really Christians. Like that sort of stuff doesn't really fly where I am. Although to a certain extent it does, but like my church gives a lot to third world charity, but they give a lot to charities that help people in the countries they're in. They're not helping people come over here. Let's see. Was I going to say anything? I don't know. I'm worn out. I don't think I'm up to much more commentary. Let's knock out the last of these videos and then we'll call it. Okay, this guy is really interesting. This is Bantu City Diary. So this guy is a black South African. He's a Bantu, but he has some very interesting perspectives on, well, a lot of things, but especially on Africa. So let's hear what he has to say.
Black African economies and countries lack the foundational requirements for sustainable growth. 6 or 7 of the world's fastest growing economies are in Africa, while 9 of the 10 poorest countries are also located on the continent. Quite a contrast, isn't it? Why are they struggling with hunger when they have the largest arable land? Why can't they build their roads, clean up their streets, improve their cities, and become self-sufficient? If you've never asked these questions, then you shouldn't be here. Try some other channel, please. Africans celebrate at the slightest opportunity. They pray fervently as if their God is deaf, and at the sight of a few $1,000s, they rush to luxury brands like Louis Vuitton. Yet their people remain among the poorest in the world, earning the least but exhibiting the loudest expressions of celebration. For an economy to grow and become competitive, it typically relies on excelling in a specific product or sector. Every developed economy is built on internal expertise in something that defines their economic strength. For instance, Switzerland is known for banking and high-value manufacturing, while South Korea's economy thrives on high-tech manufacturing and global export. Australia's economy is largely centered on a massive services sector and natural resources. All great economies have something that is in demand globally. Let's take Kenya as an example. In 2000, it had a population of 30 million people with a poverty rate of 57%. Its GDP per capita was $400. Fast forward to 2026, and its GDP per capita has risen to $2,700, marking a 575% increase. That sounds impressive, right? However, despite the 575% increase in GDP, Kenya's poverty remains virtually unchanged. Why? In contrast, Germany had a GDP per capita of $26,000 in 2000, which has now risen to $65,000. While Germans and Germany are becoming wealthier, Kenyans are not. Why is this the case? The black African economy is often subservient. When an economy produces nothing that others desire, it remains a localized buy and sell economy with little real value. Consequently, it struggles to create value internally or exert economic influence externally. A Kenyan with an equivalent of $10 million in local currency cash finds that values does not translate outside Kenya. No one wants that currency on the global stage. If the Kenyan economy produced most of the things its citizens needed, the value of that $10 million equivalent would be significant. However, because Kenya imports most of its necessary goods, that cash equivalent must
The globalized world looks like a zero-sum game.
Or other currencies accepted by the countries where they are buying those goods from.
I mean, I don't think so. It's a positive-sum
A
game.
range of products such as
The participants are gaining from trade.
cars, aeroplanes, hospital equipment, and other machinery. None.
There are
of which
only
are
so many
produced
production niches to spread around.
Kenya has
I'm
a
not
GDP
sure that's true because you can invent new things.
accumulated local value
You know,
addition. The country's
like
primary
Taiwan,
sources
their main
of
export is
foreign
semiconductors. Well,
exchange
semiconductors didn't
diaspora
exist until
remittances,
relatively recently.
agricultural product,
New
tourism,
things
and
will get
foreign
invented.
investment, totaling $12 billion in 2025, which was a record for the nation. In contrast,
I guess that kind of
with a population 3 times
joins
smaller
back
than
with
Kenya's,
the golden age of
achieved
science.
nearly
Joins
$1
back with the,
trillion
oh my god, my brain is disintegrating.
last year. The difference is
Saying,
that
hey, you know,
African
America
economies
invents these
little
technologies and then other
of
companies
that the
benefit from them. What the fuck?
demand. To thrive,
Other
or
companies,
to
other
create
countries.
Competition, you
successful
lose the
economy,
industry
a
and just
country
become
must
poor.
create
Yeah.
products that others wants to buy or use. From Kenya to Nigeria, Zimbabwe to Mozambique, and Senegal to Angola, many African economies operate on a buy and sell basis, which too often reinforces a position of subservience. For Kenya to function as a country, it must import essential items such as computers, washing machines, air conditioner units, and other machinery. When these products,
You know, even
break down,
Africa has AC.
Kenyans must rely on
But
the
Europe doesn't.
manufacturers to repair or replace them. However, top manufacturers often do not see the need to expand into these economies, especially when the local currency holds little value. So when
Africa is
compared
hot.
to their global revenue and overall purchases,
Well, I mean, so is Europe. They have thousands of people dying from.
of these companies' global turnover.
Europe was not until now.
Investing
Yeah,
in
maybe.
Kenya makes little financial sense for these companies. As a result, many Kenyans find themselves patching and repairing broken items to save money, as they cannot afford to replace them through import due to their devalued Kenyan currency and the additional cost of exchange and procedures that would further strain their finances. Kenya is not alone in this regard. It is the same across Black Africa. While Kenya's GDP has grown from 12 billion in 2000 to 147 billion in 2026, a 12-fold increase, this growth is not reflected in Kenya's living standards. The increase in GDP coincides with the country's population growth of 22 million people during the same period. This means that the GDP growth reflects the widespread subservient buy and sell economic strategy common across Africa, rather than any substantial improvement in production or manufacturing capacity. Without producing or manufacturing goods worthy of global attractiveness, economies like Kenya's, as well as the rest of Black Africa, would remain vulnerable to external forces. Africans are unlikely to build a successful economy when they depend on the decisions and health of other economies. For these reasons, many African economies are basically tag-along economies that would continue to struggle to develop. In contrast, what are the strengths of other successful economies? South Korea boasts a world-class advanced manufacturing sector, dominance in high-tech semiconductor production, heavy investment in research and development, and a significant global export capacity. The British economy is dominant in services sector, world-renowned universities, and major hubs in finance and technology.
You
Again,
can't export
Japan
services.
thrives due to its advanced
He kinda,
manufacturing capabilities.
isn't he kind of contradicting
High-tech
himself?
industrial robotic, massive global investment, and a highly educated workforce. The same is true for every developed economy in the world. Let's take a look at the economies of various African countries. What are the strengths of their economies? Nigeria, massive population and vast natural resources are its asset. Let's move on to Angola. The economy thrives on its wealth of natural resources, including crude oil and diamonds. So the Africans are natural resources based. Ghana, its strengths lie in both natural resources like gold and agricultural products, particularly cocoa. So the African economy are not productive. They don't do anything particularly special that others would want to buy. However, when we consider these African countries, it becomes apparent that they lack unique economic advantages. For instance, while they export oil and other natural resources, countries like Qatar generate nearly as much revenue from gas as all of sub-Saharan Africa combined. The Gulf Cooperation Council, GCC countries, are often seen as exceptions because I call them actually the Arab family-run dictatorships spearheaded by incest or cousin marriage. While these states do not produce much locally, they utilize oil and gas revenues to hire professionals from Europe, North America, and East Asia to develop their economies. Both African countries and these Arab family dictatorships lack the competence in building successful economies. The difference lies in the Arabs identifying their weakness and finding solutions. In contrast, the Africans have refused to identify their weakness, let alone tackle them. Moreover, much of what is consumed in sub-Saharan Africa is imported. Can an economy grow by focusing solely on the service sector, technology, finance, tourism, and intellectual property? Yes, but African nations lack expertise in these areas. They also lack the transparency and robustness required to become financial hubs comparable to New York, London, Hong Kong, Singapore, or Tokyo. Many wealthy nations
I wish I could get back to that ore that I left behind. I guess I can't.
by selling intangible assets rather than physical goods. However, without a strong foundational manufacturing sector, long-term economic sustainability and stability can be challenging. The absence of robust production capabilities contributes to weak economies in Africa. How many successful non-manufacturing economies can we identify globally? Virtually none of the major developed nations are entirely non-manufacturing. While advanced nations may primarily be post-industrial and service-oriented, but historically and economic evidence shows that achieving high income status typically requires a foundational or specialized manufacturing sector. There are only a few exceptions, such as small financial havens or resource-dependent states like Qatar, Bermuda, Cayman Islands, and the UAE. Even countries known as financial or service hubs maintain high-tech manufacturing, advanced engineering, and specialized processing. Now, why aren't Africans identifying this problem and tackling it? Well, the answer is simple. We are incompetent, period. There's nothing more to say there. A continent with the average age of 19, yet no investment in cultivating these young minds into future innovators. Africans are busy contributing to Afrobeat, dancing, and breaking all kind of ridiculous Guinness World Record, while other countries are breaking Guinness record in STEM fields. The only entries of Africans in Guinness Book of World Records often involve things like eating for 12 or 24 hours.
You have to climb the ladder starting with simpler
DJing,
produce,
while other
using
people
the
Yeah.
competitive advantage of price.
Yeah. His point is that it's like, well, we don't even care. We're not even trying. Our main export is like shitty rap and Afrobeat.
Get nothing. An economic model that relies solely on exporting raw materials and importing finished goods is inherently fragile. Without local manufacturing or value addition, African economies are vulnerable to global price fluctuations.
It seems like the core thesis, or one of the core theses of his channel, is, hey,
Furthermore,
African cultures just don't think about the future. And that's why they're trapped in poverty. It's not because of something the colonizers did to them. It's because they don't invest.
with your diamonds,
They don't invest in manufacturing, they don't invest in education, and so they stay poor.
However, if you were producing the best quality semiconductors, every company or country would want to purchase from you regardless of what conditions you impose, thus generating foreign exchange and strengthening our currency. African currencies are virtually worthless. They're not worth the papers they're written on. Any country that imports over 70% of its building materials and household items is operating an unsustainable economy. No developed economy relies on importing such a high percentage of these goods. In much of sub-Saharan Africa, over 70% of our household items and building materials are imported. This is not sustainable. Some Western countries do import a lot from China, but not because they are unable to produce this good. Instead, it is part of an economic strategy. This is why you see countries imposing tariffs on Chinese imports and attempting to achieve a balanced approach to trade. Our current economic model renders us uncompetitive, impoverished, dependent, and less attractive to foreign direct investment, FDI. The most concerning aspect is our lack of a strategy to change this situation. People who live under the African model command little respect. Our future appears bleak, our reputation is tarnished, and our children are likely to suffer due to our failures. If you think we're wrong, if you think there was anything I missed, please leave them in the comment section below. And also, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.
Alright, let me grab these yep, time to call it. Let me grab these last two rocks and then we'll call it for tonight. I guess we can...
With 240 million Nigerians raised in chaos, violence, darkness, and bribery, we have overlooked a crucial aspect of humanity: selflessness, altruism, and community spirit. Nigerians versus Burkinabes, people from Burkina Faso. Why Nigerians are unintelligent and selfish. If some African
I love this guy because he does not pull any punches.
In the next few decades, Nigeria won't be among them. The level of greed, selfishness, laziness, criminal-mindedness, tribalism, and disorganization among Nigerians is unprecedented. Across Black Africa, there is widespread admiration for Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso. We all appreciate
where'd that thing go?
Determined ambition of Ibrahim Traoré in constructing the Ouagadougou-Bobo-Dioulasso 332-kilometer motorway project. Not only is this project ambitious, but it is also the first of its kind in the whole of Black Africa. Ibrahim Traoré looked at his country, looked at their budget, looked at their revenue generation, and realized that...
Is that guy who's in that viral video?
Where the dollar determines how revenue in the international market is calculated, we will not be able to develop our country or build even the most basic infrastructure. He then invited the country's engineers and experts, and together they decided to build their own road by themselves. These are people who have never constructed a road before, let alone a massive 8-lane motorway system between mega cities. The people of the country are volunteering often using their bare hands without proper personal protective equipment and making sacrifices for their land.
Well, that's pretty cool.
They believe that a society grows when old men plant trees whose shade they know they will never sit under. This sentiment holds true in Burkina Faso. In contrast, this saying has no place in the Nigerian worldview. Greed, selfishness, and excessive indulgence in parties and dancing are Nigeria's greatest downfalls. In Burkina Faso, old people are dedicating their lives to building roads, pavement, and other infrastructure for free, fully aware that they will not live to enjoy them. If you were to tell a Nigerian this, they might think you're foolish. No Nigerian is willing to sacrifice for the future generation. The total cost of the 8-way, 332-kilometer motorway project is budgeted at 200 billion West African francs, which is equivalent to $357 million. In comparison, the Lagos-Calabar coastal 6-lane motorway project spanning 700 kilometers is estimated at $12 billion. Some say 14, but let's say 12, which is 33 times more than the one in Burkina Faso.
All right, let's get the fuck out of here.
Sink in. The Lagos-Calabar project is 368 kilometers longer. I get it. But the extra 2 lanes in the Ouagadougou-Bobo-Dioulasso project significantly reduce the difference. Nevertheless, the 33-fold budget disparity is really striking. Could Nigerians not have built this themselves? Instead of relying on the high-tech construction company limited, founded by Lebanese brothers, couldn't the 240 million people who often spend their time partying, dancing, and praying have come together to construct these roads? If they had made sacrifices like the people of Burkina Faso, the remaining $11 billion difference could have been used to improve other areas of the country. If the public had united to sacrifice for this cause, the $11 billion extra would have been sufficient to develop a motorway system for all of Nigeria within the president's 2 terms in office. The issues plaguing Nigeria stem from incompetence, greed, selfishness, materialism, and an overindulgence in partying, dancing, praying, and singing. Within weeks of the Ouagadougou-Bobo-Dioulasso motorway project, early stage work reportedly advanced at an unusual pace, even more faster than in established countries like China. Not even China do things with such speed.
All right. Well, that also sounds pretty cool. I might finish this video, maybe next time. But yeah, that's all for today. Let's look for someone to raid. Back to Twitch. We got... okay. Probably send you over to the Wizard Man tonight. Who's on YouTube? There is...
Thanks for the stream.
Yeah, no problem. There is no one on YouTube. Okay, so I'll send you over to Mr. Wizard. And I'll see you all next time. Goodbye. Tomorrow is just going to be another stream like this. Suspicious Wizard. God, I hate the ads that Twitch plays. Alright, see, that's the wrong guy. Right, he's got an underscore. Suspicious underscore Wizard. Okay, have fun with the actual wizard. I'll see y'all next time.